Boop. We did it. We did it. We made it. We're here. I feel like crap. I'm not gonna lie. I'm in a disaster state. I'm just like constantly in just an overwhelming state of being smacked in the face by capitalism. I won't lie. A big part of it is just a vitamin D deficiency. For sure. I need more vitamin D in my diet. That is absolutely the case. And I also made the absolutely dumb-headed decision. Just being a big dumb of just being like gluten. I'm just gonna jam my face full of gluten. And for regular watchers, you guys know I have a gluten intolerance. And today I was just like, I'm going to take this pastry and jam it into my maw, and that's going to make me feel better. And I'm going to tell you what, it made me feel better for maybe about a minute as I was eating it, and like a minute afterwards, because I was like, yes, pastry, delicious. And then I basically spent the rest of the day being like, gluten. And now I'm sitting here, and I'm very much like, gluten. It's very bad. It's very bad. But I'm alive. That's what matters. Content. Absolute pleasure to see you, my friend. You are the first of the week. Radio Halifax coming in with the wife says, how the F you doing? Well, you say, how the F are you doing? Fancy dancy Radio Halifax wife. Absolute pleasure. Hope you're doing well out there. I hope you're doing the F really well. I hope the F is going really well for you. We should all F the F. F-ity F. Ligon to Z, good to see you, bud. Good to see you. Oh my goodness. What a weekend we have had. Basically, Doug Ford just decides, hey, you know what would be a really good idea? You know what would be a really super cool idea? The coolest idea that I think a person could have is let's rob the populace of access to basic health care. Let's commodify healthcare. Let's withhold not just food, not just shelter, but also necessary surgeries, also things that people need access to have an improved quality of life. Let's withhold that as well and commodify that as well. And hopefully we can achieve what the United States has already achieved, which is tying healthcare to people's employment, thereby entrapping the working class into shitty conditions that they can't escape. That's the goal of the psychopath class, right? That's the goal of the capitalists, is to ensure that the average citizen simply just doesn't have access to basic necessities and basic rights. And they're well aware of what the outcomes of this are. They know that this creates homelessness. They know that this creates poverty. And you can just listen to rapacious sociopaths like Kevin O'Leary to see how celebratory and the rationale behind that, right? We need to create terrible conditions so that people feel the need to escape them. And the only option that we give them to escape the terrible conditions that we ourselves are creating is by working hard for us. And if you don't do that, then you're a loser or lazy or a layabout or any of that kind of stuff. And if you expect to live in a society that actually provides for its citizens, that actually provides food and provides shelter, instead of empowering the psychopaths in the society who withhold those things after monopolizing them, then you're a utopian dreamer or you want a free handout. While the psychopath class gets bailed out time and time again, the populace is told to go fuck themselves. That's essentially the situation of what's going on with Doug Ford privatizing the system. Big surprise, conservatives privatizing the system, and we seem to be down for it. You know, we seem to be down for it. Not only do we have a big result, right? All sections and all sectors are reporting on Doug Ford's privatization and reporting on it very upfront. I've only seen maybe one or two outlets that are trying to soft hand this. Dita, good to see you, bud. Good to see you. I've only seen a couple of outlets that are trying to soft hand it, but you've got the Financial Post just calling Ford's plans to privatize Ontario's public hospital surgeries a fatal threat and a terrible blow to our public hospitals. Health advocates vow major fight back. That's from the Financial Post. Like, so we're reporting on the devastation that this is going to be. And in the meantime, while that's happening, conservatives open 7-point advantage over the liberals. So it looks like we kind of want privatization as a people. Like we're very thick. Like we're very, very thick if we actually think that this is a good idea. If we think that the solution to our problems is going to be putting conservatives into places of power. Like it's no small wonder we are where we are, right? It's no small wonder. The only justification that I think exists for this is that people are so sick and tired of voting for a right-wing party like the Liberals that they're finally just shrugging and saying, like, look, we need to clear out these liberals and we need to open up the field for different ideas and new ideas. And so we're going to abandon these liberals. And yes, that means that the conservatives get to walk in for a little period of time. But hopefully that'll be a period of organization for us to regroup underneath a proper left party. It just doesn't work that way. Right? It just doesn't work that way. Like it's I suppose we're setting ourselves up to have the real villain, like the real psychopaths in power, so that we can actually form up protest movements against them and have everybody agree that, like, yeah, like the Ford administration is overtly terrifyingly evil. Like pretty straightforward. Compton says, guys, why does this guy on the screen always talk Canadian politics? It's just the 51st state. I mean, come on. Yeah, you got me, Compton. You're right. We are essentially just a vassal state. It's true. Like, if the United States tells us to do something, we're probably just going to do it. Because our strategy on the global stage is, hey, at least the Americans aren't bombing us. That's basically the strategy. Just keep the eye of Sauron away from Canada. Right, so if the eye of Sauron, if Mount Doom says, go do this, move these troops here, do this thing, we're just going to say yes sir, and we're just going to go do it, because like at least we're not the ones being bombed. That's the hard truth. The dentist wanted to charge me $1,300 for a root canal therapy. Yet dentists are private. $1,300 is the haggled price. Yeah, and what happens if you don't get it? Right? Like, what happens if you don't get it? Like the thing that I think is so embarrassing about our society is that all of this stuff could be baked in to the fabric of the society, right? Like, this dentist could be living very well, but it's the promise of more, right? It's greed. It's simple greed, and it's this enticement that you could always have more, right? Well, why accept being paid $100,000? You could make $150,000. Right? If you let us privatize it, you could make $200,000, right? If it was a privatized system, you would make $250,000, right? There's always this promise. There's always this promise of more that is always dangled in front of people. All you got to do is sacrifice the stability of the society, right? That's how you get more. You just sacrifice the stability of the society. You sacrifice everything at the altar of capital. And then let's say you get that more. So what? Right? Do you really genuinely think your quality of life has gone up? Like, this to me is actually the most embarrassing part. That there is just a moment where, like, unless you really want to buy a private island, unless you really want to, like, buy Jeffrey Epstein's island, right? Like, then you are going to live in, then you're going to be fine. Like, if all you really want is just, like, a really nice house, a nice car, and work a respectable job, then what's the difference between $100,000 or $200,000? Like, really? Like, what's the difference? And like, but people, they're striving for more and for greater, and they just want to fill the emptiness that exists in their heart with stuff, right? Grinning, absolute pleasure to see you, bud. Interesting story. There's a guy in Pittsburgh that pled guilty to paying homeless to steal from stores like Walgreens, then selling the stolen goods on Amazon. Didn't Lennon rob banks? Yeah, absolutely. I actually have, because because of the absolute ridiculousness. Do I have that article in front of my face? No, I'm going to the Discord. I'm going to the Discord. I'm sure I've got that in the Discord. We are absolutely, yeah, here it is. Canadians are now stealing overpriced food from grocery stores with zero remorse. And we here at the Canadian Commie do not, do not, wink wink, endorse people, wink wink, stealing overpriced food from grocery stores, wink wink, right? I know that my grocery store, I walked in there today, and I was in there literally last week, and so over the weekend, they installed cameras. Like, they installed cameras with television screens so everybody could see the cameras and all that kind of stuff. So when I walk through my grocery store now, it's a surveillance state. Like, they're making it obvious now, guys. Like, when I walk into my local grocery store, it's like walking into a totalitarian, like, hyper surveillance state. It's literally like any nightmare movie you've seen from anything you've ever experienced, right? Like, you're constantly surveilled, you're constantly being observed, and it's all because of the basic premise of we should withhold food from the populace, right? Like, the basic premise of our society is that food and shelter should be withheld from the populace. And we never get to discuss the legitimacy of such a policy. We never get to discuss the legitimacy of such an idea that food and shelter should be widely available to everyone. It should be freely given out. People should be able to get it for free. Charging for food should be considered a joke. Like, we should literally look at that and be like, why? I'm not going to pay you for food. Like, we produce so much food that we throw half of it away into the bin. And if the capitalists complain, well, how could that possibly be profitable? Then we should nationalize it and chase them completely out of the market. Like, this idea that we're relying on the most psychopathic people in the society to regulate our systems, our food distribution systems, is asinine. We should nationalize these systems and get rid of these psychopaths. And we should consider someone standing up and saying, I want to charge for bread to be a crime on the face of it. Like, I'm over this shit. We can nationalize this stuff, and the idea that we can't is a total fucking joke. It's a total fucking joke. We throw so much food away. And the reason why they throw that food away instead of donate it is because they know if they started donating it, it would drive the price of food down to the ground. And they know it. Like, they know it. It's really, really obvious. Like, it's gotten really, really fucking obvious. But no, instead we need to tolerate being hyper-surveilled in a totalitarian, like, police state, essentially. Like, soon there will be guards. Like, where does everyone think this is going? Right? Where does everyone think this is fucking going? That you're going to walk into these establishments and there's just going to be guards there. Like, if you go to the liquor mart, there's already a security guard there. Right? Like, soon you're going to walk into, like, a local rinky-dink grocery store that's got, like, a staff of 10 people, and one of those people is going to be the security guard that stands at the door, while there's a big camera constantly staring at you wherever you go. Like, that's already happening. I'm experiencing that already. Like, and these things are going to become normalized. This is how we want to live. Like, really? This is how we want to live. We want to live in a hyper-surveilled, obvious, totalitarian police state. Like, where you walk into a place of business, and from the beginning to the end, there are just cameras watching your every movement. Like, I'd be terrified if it wasn't such a fucking pathetic joke. Like, our leaders are such pathetic losers. And yeah, we keep going to work. Like, it's stunning. Oddity, how you doing? Mocked, how you doing, bud? I don't mean to ignore this. The Vietnamese president resigned. Unfortunately, I don't know anything about that story. If you could fill me in on that, I would love to know more. Vietnamese president resigned. Oddity, I'm going to need thousands of dollars of dental work soon, but it's okay. We'll get some kind of dental program, yeah, in 2025. You bet, Oddity. It's coming. I've really got my fingers crossed for that. That's for sure going to happen. And Emily, absolute pleasure to see you. Absolute pleasure to see you. I hope you guys are all doing well out there in TikTok land. Don't forget to like and do all that good stuff. If you really want to talk to me, come on over to YouTube, right? I don't pay too much attention to the chat, Because I mean, it's usually a dumpster fire, guys. Like, I'm so sorry. Yeah. Although, yeah, because you get comments like this, where it's communism and capitalism are two sides of the global centralization coin. Like, I don't have the patience to talk to that anymore. Just steal food from Loblaws. Like, we here at the Canadian Commie do not endorse theft. Wink, wink. Right? We do not endorse. We do not endorse the stealing. Wink of food. Wink. Do not steal food. Wink, says the Canadian Commie. Wink, wink. There's a pharmacy next door, says Compton. They got soap and toiletries behind lock and key. Yeah. Like, it's really happening, eh? Like, it's really happening. Like, we are witnessing a true decline. Like, and it's happening quite rapidly. The change that happened in my local grocery store, I know I keep talking about it, but I didn't quite realize. Like, I literally got home from the grocery store, sat down, got everything together, decompressed a little bit, and launched the channel. And now I'm kind of sitting here, like, stewing in this reality of, like, oh shit, yeah, like, that happened immediately. Like, it happened instantly. My grocery store went from having no surveillance that was apparent. Like, I'm sure they had surveillance, right? Like, I'm sure that there was a camera up in a corner or something. And it went from having that kind of surveillance, which, I mean, the place I work at a cafe, and the place I work has that kind of surveillance, right? But it went from that kind of surveillance to, like, literally you can see the camera. There's a big screen TV, like a big screen TV, not like some rinky-dinky little kind of thing, like a fucking full-scale big screen TV attached to every single camera, so that you can see yourself as you walk by these cameras, and one of these is in at least every single aisle, if not two. And it happened overnight. It happened instantly. I literally was in that grocery store 4 days ago. So within the span of 4 days, I went from going into a grocery store and things being normal to this hyper surveillance where they obviously want you to know you're being surveilled. And I think that's the major difference. Like, they obviously want you to know that we're looking at you. We see you. We've got you on camera. We can do this. Because everybody knows, like, if you sit down and actually think about surveillance for even 2 seconds, there's nobody sitting there staring at the camera. Like, there's nobody sitting there going, well, I'm looking at you in the camera, right? It's just a robot. Like, it's just a robot. And the technology isn't at the place yet where the robot can be like, that person is stealing. Like, it's not there. So all the purpose of surveillance is if something happens, right? That if somebody comes in with a weapon, right? If something occurs, if somebody slips, if there's an event, and everyone in the space goes, there was an event. And people go, well, when did the event happen? And you go, well, it happened on Tuesday at 10 a.m. And so they're like, okay, let's pull up the footage, Tuesday 10 a.m., right? And you pull up the footage of Tuesday 10 a.m. and then you see the event. And then you can make a decision based on what you see. That's how surveillance actually works. If they were to actually hire people to actually stare at the camera to try to prevent theft, they'd end up spending more on the labor to view the surveillance than they would recover in theft, right? That's the reason why it doesn't work. And so what they're doing is they're just spending more money on equipment in the hope that that will resolve it. So it's like a sociological experiment. It's like it's a societal experiment. If people know overtly that they're being watched, will they continue to steal? And the truth is that, yeah, they will. Like, yeah, they will. Some people won't. But, like, I think most people who are at that place where they need to be stealing food will. Because they know that there's nobody coming, like, stomping down the hall and being like, you there, you took the chicken, right? Like, and I'm sure that they could probably, like, sit down and, like, watch the tape and be like, okay, well, we lost a bunch of money on chicken, let's say, so let's watch the tape. Then you got a person, or you don't know anything about them, You don't know who they are. You don't know where they are. You don't know how you're going to find them. So even if you did watch the tape, what are you going to do about it? Right? You're gonna send people around knocking on people's doors and like holding up a picture that you have from this camera, right? So like, and the more you think about it, the more you realize like these cameras are not actually doing anything. They're really not. You're not gonna get chased down. You're not gonna have like and like it's possible that someone will pursue, like, that's the thing, is that they're banking on the idea that you think about it from the terms of what is possible. And it is completely possible that they'll get you on camera taking some chicken and then match up that footage to you, right? Connect it all together, actually lay charges, actually move forward, and actually prosecute you. And then you'll actually get a judge who actually is like, we're going to make a case out of this, right? So it's all within the realm of possibility. But the likelihood of it all happening, the likelihood of all of those pieces connecting together is pretty flippin' low. Like pretty low. And it's far more likely that a staff member is going to see you, right? It's far more likely that someone who works there is going to see you do it. And it's just like and so them putting in this surveillance equipment, it's just fucking insulting. Like, it's just insulting. It's just a way for them to say, you are here and we are here. We are withholding food and shelter from you. We are withholding this from you. And that means that we can lord it over you and raise prices as high as we want. And if you retaliate, or if you do the normal thing of just taking the food, which we here at the Canadian Commie do not advise, like wink wink, right? Wink wink. But if you actually do that, well, then we're gonna hit you. We're gonna raise the stakes. We're gonna escalate. That's what we're doing now. We're escalating, right? And you can't turn around and say, hey, maybe people should have access to food and shelter. You can't say that. That's not allowed. That's not permitted, right? If you say that, then, oh, it's the fail system. Oh, communism never works. Oh, my goodness, brain off, right? Brain literally off. It's totally cool that we live in a surveillance state that's dominated by psychopaths. Totally normal. This is a normal society, right? Completely normal society. Compton says, actually, John, they don't stop you over a candy bar. They know who you are and what you stole, and they let you keep doing it until the amount you stole is enough to prosecute in an extremely draconian way. Yeah, I mean, that's possible. Like, that... but, and again, like, it's all within the realm of possibility, right? But, like, really, when you pause and think about it, so you're telling me that they're going to hire lawyers, right? Like, already, they're going to hire lawyers. Like, Loblaws is going to hire lawyers, right? So they're going to spend $100,000 just pursuing this, right? Like, already. It's the reason why they no longer do mystery shoppers and shit, because they just realize, like, it costs them more, right? If the amount of theft is here, but the cost of labor is here, then it like, there's a reason why there's, like, almost no preventative actions. There's a reason. And then on top of that, let's say they did try to stop you, right? And then someone got hurt. Well, now you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars on some labor problem, right? Over what? Like, over what? So until the problem becomes very significant, and I think the thing is that, like, the problem hasn't yet become very significant for them, but I think that they're afraid that it will. Like, that's the real truth. Like at this stage in the game, they're still overwhelmingly making money hand over fist. It's not even making a dent in their profit margin, right? It's probably not even, like, in their top 5 of lost expenditures, right? Honestly, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, it probably doesn't even break the top 10, right? Like, losses due to theft, it's probably not even in the top 10 of what they're concerned about, right? But I think that they're just concerned that it will be. They're just concerned that it's going to climb, and so they're trying to get ahead of it, which tells you very cleanly that they have no intention of doing anything to alleviate the problem. If anything, they're going to do everything they can to make the problem worse, right? Like, why spend the money on the equipment if it was just like a spike up and then they had every intention of declining it, right? No, they're putting in the equipment and they're getting everyone prepared to normalize this sort of situation so that as the problem escalates, they'll escalate alongside of it. And we'll all just keep fucking going to work like always. Like, so we are. Content says, dude, that's what it is. Yes, they can ruin people in small claims court for super cheap. I'd have to see the numbers on that. I don't doubt you, Content. I don't doubt you. Like, small claims, yeah, you are right about that. Like, a small claims court, you wouldn't have to hire like a super expensive lawyer for small claims court. It would have to be like, but you are right. Like, it would have to be regular theft. You know what I mean? Like, they'd have to have like a lot of like, because they'd have to have a lot of footage, and I think that they'd really have to try. You know what I mean? Like, they'd have to know who you are. They'd have to see you as a regular. They'd have to understand that you're stealing. They'd have to find the theft. They'd have to have put in a lot of work. They'd have to have really meant it. And I really think the only reason why such a thing would happen is if that person was also causing other problems, right? Like, because you can cause societal problems and not really have it go anywhere. But if you're also stealing, you know, that's a whole other ball of wax. Mock says Texas spent $23,000 to avoid giving a cotton blanket to a prisoner who's allergic to the standard issue blanket. Yeah, and then Mock just nails it, honestly. This comment, like, never, ever underestimate the power of just outright pettiness, right? Just like a capitalist being like, I don't care if it costs $100,000 to prosecute this person. They stole $500 worth of goods from me over 3 months. Let's go, right? Like, never underestimate the total, overwhelming, petty power of just absolute asinine. Like, if the eye of Sauron turns on you, if the eye of Sauron turns on you and just decides you are the one that must be destroyed, and I don't care, like, I don't care how many resources it costs, yeah, it can go down like that. It's definitely within the realm of possibility, which is, again, what I think everyone is banking on. That's what the capitalist class is sort of banking on. They're just banking on it's within the realm of possibility. But here's something I've been thinking about a lot recently, right? Because the society is fraying and detaching. Rusty, good to see you. Santora, good to see you, bud. The society is breaking apart so dramatically and so frantically that eventually people are not going to have anything to lose, right? Like, people are going to be homeless, or they're going to be living in really shitty living conditions, right? And food and shelter is withheld from them. And so they're not going to have anything to lose. And the only recourse that you're actually going to have on these people is incarceration, right? So you're basically saying, oh, your life is so shitty and everything's so horrible. We've made things so difficult for you outside of the prison system. So we're going to put you in the prison system where we give you food and shelter. But the thing we're taking away from you is your ability to go see like plays and shit, or sleep in the park or something. Things that we weren't letting you do anyway, because you didn't have the capital, you didn't have the resources to do that anyway. So now you live in this prison system where we actually give you food and shelter, right? So, like, no wonder the rich and powerful are funneling all their money into prisons, because they know that's where they're going to put all of us. Because they know it's the only reaction they can possibly have. Because they're making the living conditions of outside the prison system so untenable and shitty. We can't afford rent. We can't afford food. We can't afford the basics. This is such a failed society on the face of it. Like, that's why I no longer bother responding to the people who are like, communism, it never works, and capitalism, you've got a Valula, because they're completely unserious people. Like, this society has obviously overt in overwhelming ways failed. Like completely. And people telling me otherwise are just children. I'm over it, and I don't even think I need to talk to it anymore. Right? We need to move past that. Because if you genuinely need to be convinced that the society you live in is a failed society, then I just think you're an unserious person. And you just don't need to be taken seriously. right? You just need to grow up, look around the world, like actually recognize that, hey, maybe people lie to you, and get on with it. And I mean, and now it's just gotten so ridiculous. Like, it's just gotten so, like, banal in its ridiculousness that our leadership genuinely feels like it can just privatize the healthcare system. It just genuinely feels like it's just going like, yeah, we could just privatize that. That's fine. We'll get reelected. They don't give a fuck. They don't care. They love me. I'm Doug Ford. Right? For the people. Like, they're not afraid of us. They don't care. They have no ethics or morals. It's literally just money for me. Like, and all of the privatized institutions that Ford is promoting, right? They're all his donors. Like, and it's as naked as it can possibly be, right? That, like, Doug Ford is literally standing in front of you saying, hey, you know that free thing that you got for free just for being a citizen, and that was hard fought for? That there's a big political story about the hard fought and won fight for healthcare? Well, fuck you. Like, literally. I want to charge you for something that's free. That's straight up his pitch. That's what he's saying to your face. That's something that you had as a citizen of Canada, I'm taking away so that my friends can make money off of your suffering. It's literally the argument. And we're all just going, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, normal. That's normal. And, like, the real dum-dums around us, the real, like, absolute dead brains, are actually saying, it'll actually make things better. You know, when we actually start paying for something that was free before, that'll actually make it better somehow. That's right. Yeah, I know it was free before and we had fine service, but then it got defunded. And that made it worse. And so it's socialism's fault. Yeah, that's the thing. Definitely not a concentrated attack on the system. Like, and there just comes a point where I just gotta kind of shrug and be like, I guess we deserve it. Like, I guess we just deserve it, eh? Like, if it's this easy for them, like, if it's this easy, like, if they can literally just walk into the room and be like, yeah, that thing you had for free, I'm taking it. And we're all just like, okay. Yeah. I mean, obviously. Right? Obviously. Oh my goodness. How you guys doing out there in TikTok land, man? Sometimes I look over at TikTok and it's literally like 5 viewers. And then sometimes I look over and it's like 838 million. I don't understand it. Make sure you like it. Make sure you share it. Do all the things. Hit all the bells. Hit all the whistles. If you really want to talk to me, if you really want me to respond to this, right? Come on over to the YouTube channel. Keep the Ronnie McNutt shit there, though. Like, it's, I get why you guys are doing it. God bless you, Ronnie, wherever you are. Santora, the commercialization of all systems is impossible with how we run it. They have set the machine on a death march which, unlike before, will collapse before the finish line. I mean, there is no finish line, first of all, but, like, it's like we've lost the thread completely. Like, we've lost the thread completely. Like, we as a people don't, like, we're, if I could take a simple snapshot of what I think and who I think we are, if you're familiar with the show or the movie Dr. Strangelove, right? There's a great shot in Dr. Strangelove where the character is riding the nuclear bomb. Here. Dr. Strangelove riding bomb. Yeah, this is it right here. Comes up straight away. Right? If I could really take a picture and show it and just title it Westerners, this is it. Like, this is it. Like, just write the West on this guy's chest. The guy on top of the, for you on TikTok who can't see the picture, the guy just on top of the bomb being like, yeehaw, woohoo, like heading to his death, committing suicide for fucking the stupidest possible reason imaginable, for just the stupidest, most overt, Completely a miscommunication. This guy thinks he's a hero. Like, this guy thinks he's going to die a hero and that everyone is going to love him and he's going to be seen as this great... They'll build a statue for him. And the entire world is going to look at this guy and just be like, what a boob. Like, what a boob. Like, what... Just face planting. Face first into his own stupidity. But at least this guy didn't also have, like, a massive amount of hubris and arrogance attached to it. Yeah, they already venerate Churchill. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Churchill got us through the war. He got us through the war. He made a couple good speeches, though. Can't lie about that. They will fight. We will fight them on the beaches. We will fight them in the cities. That's actually a really good Churchill speech, straight up. As I recall in the movie, this fella jumped on the bomb to unstick it in the bomber. That's exactly what he did. Yeah, that's exactly what he was doing. Like, so it's extra stupid. It's like cartoonishly dumb. Right? Oh, guys, I hate to do this. I really hate to do this. I need to use the washroom. I swear to God I used the washroom before I started. I swear to God. So bear with me for a second, okay? I'll be right back. Be right back. Be right back. Gonna sing a song about being right back. Being right back. Being right back. Gonna sing a song about being right back. Peeing. We're having a pee break. Pee break. Pee break. Sometimes you gotta pee. Unfortunate times. Unfortunate times. Unfortunate times. Unfortunate times. Pee break. Pee break. I guess it's time to pee. Pee break. Pee break. It's time to pee. I feel like I should get like an animation. I feel like I should have like an animated guy who's like dancing on the screen somehow. Right? Like, we'll all have a little pee break. And it'll be great. Oh my goodness. Sorry about that, guys. Sorry about that. Ugh. Being a human, eh? Being a human. No, I don't have a condition. I'm just drinking a lot of water. That's all it is. I'm just drinking a lot of water. And coffee. I'm drinking too much water and coffee, dude. Like, I'm trying to do everything I can to stay awake. All right. Well, at least you're all here, and we're all here together, and that's what really matters. From Mark Lamont Hill, this is a tweet, if you will. Today, let us remember Martin Luther King as he was. A black, radical, anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, revolutionary Christian internationalist who was deemed an enemy of the state and assassinated by the FBI for his radical work. Just about everything else is a lie. At least with him singing, we will know when the CIA breaks in if it stops. Yeah, dude, if the CIA broke in, it would be loud. There would be a lot of racket. It's called Getting Old. Yeah, thanks, radio. I need that. Sing the Mr. Rogers song. Oh, I remember that. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. A beautiful day for a neighbor. Oh, won't you be mine? Won't you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? If the richest province in the country and one of the richest in North America is preparing to do this, your province is as well. This is a test balloon. Privatized healthcare is an inevitability if these tests aren't resolutely rejected by the public. Like, here's the narrative that I see emerging, though, is that all of the Canadians and everybody's going to be like, yeah, we'll use electoralism. We'll electoralize our way out of it. And so Doug Ford will privatize the system, right? Put in the privatization measures. We'll all get behind some liberal, right? Vote the liberal in to be like, yeah, that we got him. And Doug Ford will be like, cool, I privatized the system and I'm going to get rewarded by the people I privatized that system for. He'll go work, get a six-figure salary at some, like, give one speech, every couple of years or something, or just sit on the board of directors of one of these places he privatized. And the liberal will come in and be like, okay, Dougie's gone. Yeah, we're not going to renationalize it because, that would be hard. Like, that's what's going to happen. And then we're just going to accept and deal with the fact that we have. And how do I know that's the case? Because that's exactly what happened after Mike Harris. Like, Mike Harris came in and privatized a bunch of long-term health care facilities, right? Of which he sits on the board of directors of some. And then we voted in some liberals, and they just left it. Like, they didn't do fuck. It's that ratchet I keep talking about, right? Right? Liberals come in and they maintain the status quo, right? Conservatives come in and go click, click, and then liberals come in and maybe they click it forward a little bit, but maintain the status quo, and then conservatives go click, click, right? Click, 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 click. That's electoralism. That's what electoralism does. That's how it works. I remember hearing that theme on a climate change ad. Oh yeah, Mr. Rogers. He's everywhere, in our hearts. We can remember and love and we could use a Mr. Rogers right now. I tell you what, we could use a Mr. Rogers right now. Wouldn't it be great if there was anyone in the conversation or in the world who was actually like trying to tell people about how we could just be nice to one another? You know, hey, you could be nice to one another, and that would be great. Like, that's basically what Mr. Rogers was trying to do. And now who exists in the society today that's even saying like, yeah, hey, we could just like, you know, expect standards. Like, we could just have standards, you know? Like, we could actually say to our government, like, hey, why do you exist? Like, what's your purpose? Like, what role do you fill in our society? Because if the role you fill is just enriching rich psychopaths who treat us like cattle, then I don't think that's something we should take very seriously. But, I mean, outside of the threat it obviously poses to our lives. But, like, you could exist to ensure that everyone was safe and fed and well taken care of, right? But that's not going to happen. Like, that's just straight up not going to happen. And the major reason why it's not going to happen is because nobody insists that it should be so, right? Everybody's just happy that they're ruled by Elon Musk, basically. You know? Everybody's just like, yes, Elon daddy, please, dominate us. Give us all the wealth and power. So, I like, really, when it comes to when we get to the base, when we get to the bottom of what the trouble is with what's going on, it is cultural, ultimately, I think. That, like, if literally everybody was walking around being like, yeah, everyone should have food and shelter, and we're not going to work, like, we're not going to participate in this, like, or if we do participate, it'll be at the absolute barest of minimums, right? Like, why do you think we saw all of this reporting on the quiet quitting phenomenon? It's because they're scared of it. They're terrified of this idea that, like, oh, we can't extract maximum amount of value out of people, like, we can't grind them into a meat grinder and have them sacrifice their whole life to us. They're literally just going to show up, do the barest minimum of the job that they're required, and then go home and forget about it. Like, they're not gonna absolutely do everything they can to subserviate themselves to us. We got to write article after article after article about this. What a huge problem. Holy shit, human beings want to be human beings? We got to do something about this. Like, it always pays to remember that our rulers are actually just petty and weak. Right? They don't care about anything other than themselves. And anytime people say, like, hey, you should care about your own life more than you care about the wealth of capitalists. Oh, you're a loser, layabout. Yeah, the gaslighting. Just the gaslighting, the overwhelming gaslighting. And I just don't know why we're taking it seriously anymore. I don't know why we listen to these people. Like, I don't know why we tolerate them. They're bums. Like, they're losers. They were born rich. Like, that's the long and short of it. Like, think of the stupidest person you know in your life, right? Think of just the dumbest or the most selfish or the most self-centered. Just a person. Everybody knows somebody like this, right? That you just are like, man, I wish this person was nowhere near me ever. Now just imagine they were born with $1 billion. Like, that's it. That's all that's happening, right? There's no mystery, and there's no institutional force to stop them. In fact, quite the opposite. That the institutions exist to empower these people. Like, that's the reason these institutions were created. In the United States, it's as explicit as possible. It's built into the document that power should stay within the wealth of the nation, right? So only the rich get to be decision makers. So just imagine the worst person you know with $1 billion. Congratulations. The system is designed to empower them, right? Like the Canadian system was literally created by monarchs. Well, you think the monarchs are creating a system so that the people can decide? Like, no, they're creating a legislative system to organize resources, and that includes people, in order to empower themselves. Like, that's the whole point. and like, there's a reason why this whole thing is breaking apart. Because the systems themselves were never designed to actually respond to the needs of the public. They were designed to erect a fascist state, to inflict that fascist state against the populace. And if the populace actually rises up in some kind of rebellion, the system is designed to quell it. Like and it's certainly not designed to respond rationally to it. You can see that with the Occupy Wall Street movement. Like a rational system would have looked at the Occupy Wall Street movement and would have at the very least been like, oh shit, here's a lot of people who are standing around doing nothing. We should do something with these people. We should create a jobs program. We should create something. These are the same guys that are complaining about idle hands, right? Idle hands are the devil's work toolkit or something like this. Some dumb shit like this, right? So well, if you've got idle hands, how about you create a jobs program, right? Nah, can't even be arsed to do that. Sigma, good to see you, bud. Saw you were live, thought I would stop by, say hi. Good to see you, bud. Always a pleasure. Seeing people float in. Hope you guys are all doing well out in TikTok land. Right? Yeah, better dead than red, bud. I mean, you're just outright admitting you're a fascist, right? Forget about diplomacy, negotiation, any of that kind of stuff. Grow up. Jeez, like every time I look over there, dude, it's just babies. It's just baby people crying away. If you want to have an adult conversation, come over to YouTube. If you're sick and tired of this, come over to YouTube. Right? Yeah, you love capitalism. I'm sure you do. Right? I'm sure it won't betray you like it's betraying all of us. For example, new report shows alarming changes in the entire global water cycle. Major water-related events in 2022. In 2022, a third La Nina year brought as much rain to Australia and Southeast Asia in dry conditions to the other side of the Pacific. These patterns were expected, but behind these variations are troubling signs that the entire global water cycle is changing. And mocked, correct to point out, better dead than red, right, was a phrase coined by Joseph Goebbels. So that's like literally Nazi stuff. Like literally Nazi stuff, right? Like that's what makes it so, like, these guys want to be taken, like, that's what's, like, that's why I'm just not, like, bothering trying to convince people that capitalism has failed anymore. Because the only people who are willing to actually defend the system are literal Nazis, right? And it's gotten really obvious. I'd love to have that conversation with that guy who was just like, no, I think capitalism can be reformed and it can be changed. And he's like literally surrounded by Nazis while outright trying to talk about this. And it's gotten like painfully obvious. Just look at it, right? Like look at this clusterfuck of absolute ridiculousness. That it's just like a sea of Nazis and crazed lunatics, and anybody who actually wants to have a real conversation, you can come on over to YouTube, right? And if you want to, and if we see that you're an adult, you can join the conversation. Oh my goodness. Yeah, for the first time, we've drawn on those many terabytes of data to paint a full picture of the water cycle over a year for the entire globe. The findings are contained in a report. The key conclusion: Earth's water cycle is clearly changing. Globally, the air is getting hotter and drier. This means droughts and risky fire conditions are developing faster and more frequently. In 2022, a third consecutive La Nina affected weather around the world. The most devastating floods occurred in Pakistan. Another year of drought also decimated crops. Like, And this is what our future looks like. Like, this is what our future looks like. We're getting to the point now, like, it is time to kill the hope that we're going to pull the plane up. Like, it's time to do that. And it's time to get through the despair. Like, I know that this is dramatically, like, despairing news. And that it's easy to fall into despair. Right? And I think it's easy for people to not think about it. It's easy for people to bounce off of it. But the truth is that capitalism has killed the conditions for life. Like, I don't want to say that capitalism's killing the planet, because that's giving capitalism way more credit than it's due. And certainly the people who are at the helm, way more credit than they're due. But we're basically committing a collective suicide with these guys. Right? And the climate change situation is absolutely the case. Like, things are going to happen that we're not prepared for at all. Like, even the most well-researched scientist is not going to foresee the catastrophes that are coming, because the system is more complex than our ability to understand it. That we have a fairly broad paintbrush, right? We've got a fairly broad paintbrush, but like, we're just careening headfirst into unknown territory where we're just basically mooning the gods and saying you'll never strike back at us. and they will. Like, the gods will strike back at us, right? La Nina's influence appears to be waning, and a switch to an El Nino halfway through this year is possible. Hopefully that will mean fewer flood disasters in Asia and Oceania, and more rain for drought-affected regions in the Americas and East Africa. Australia, however, may see a return to heat waves and bushfires. Isn't that nice for Australia? More bushfires. In the longer term, 2023 may mark the start of another multi-year drought. The seesawing between El Nino and La Nina is a natural phenomenon, but it remains to be seen whether the triple La Nina was a statistical fluke or a sign of disruption from climate change. Yeah, I mean, you guys know me, man. Radio Halifax is saying Halifax is surrounded by forest. Yeah, not for long. And my feeling is, if I was a betting man, I think that sooner rather than later, the city of Kamloops is gonna get hit pretty hard. Like, to me, Kamloops is like we know that the small town of Lytton, British Columbia, burnt down because of climate change, because of the conditions surrounding climate change, right? And it burnt down so fast that they couldn't even respond to it. That the buildings burnt down with the fire trucks in them. Like, that's how fast it burnt down. And and if you take a look at a map, well, the fire conditions and the wildfires, they continuously surround this community of Kamloops. And so in my perspective, it's just a matter of time before there's an intense wildfire, one that's intense enough to break through the defenses they have and actually cause some serious damage. And maybe once that happens, people will report on it and actually take climate change seriously. But right now, we're just like... And the people who are in the denial camp at this stage in the game are just delusional losers like Jordan Peterson, right? Like, Peterson's literally spreading around propaganda. He spread a chart around recently, and he was like, haha, checkmate. What do you say about this, environmentalist? And the chart ended in 1885. Like... It was like a long-term perspective of environment showing like big ups and downs. And I think the whole point was him being like, look, the climate goes up and down naturally. Take a look at this. And then the chart ends in 1885. And then if you actually go and find the rest of the chart, the temperature actually spikes up dramatically after 1885. So it's just like this embarrassing removal of information that's clearly available for everybody to see, in an attempt to obviously grift his own people and remain demented and delusional. Like, it's so clear that Peterson works for the fossil fuel industry now. It's so clear that he's sold out to them. Yeah, Peterson's now just one of Ben Shabibo's well-paid grifters. I think that's probably true. Like, and they're all just in bed with fossil fuel. Like, they're all just in bed with them. Thomas, good to see you, bud. Don't know if you've ever been here before. Hope you're here to be beautiful, bud. Good to see you, by the way, Watson. Thomas, that would be during the Industrial Revolution. What? Sorry, man. I don't think I understand your comment. Like, cutting it off would be during the Industrial Revolution? You gotta bear with me, Thomas. I'm a very tired, sleepy boy. I'm a very tired, sleepy boy. Like, it is kind of getting to the point where sometimes I feel like I hit record or hit play on this stream, and I'm like, what the fuck am I even gonna say? Like, sometimes I worry that you guys are listening in and you're all just like, man, this is a broken record. I've heard this one before, right? I've heard this one before. Call for new taxes on super rich after 1% pocket 2/3 of all new wealth. $26 trillion of new wealth created since the start of the pandemic went to the richest, Oxfam reports. Oxfam has called for immediate action to tackle a post-COVID widening in global inequality after revealing that almost 2/3 of the new wealth amassed since the start of the pandemic has gone to the richest 1%. In report to coincide with the annual gatherings of the global elite at the World Economic Forum in Davos, the charity said the best off had pocketed $26 trillion in new wealth up to the end of 2021. That represented 63% of the total new wealth, with the rest going to the remaining 99% of people. And I assume the vast majority of the remaining 37% went probably to the top 20%, right? That's usually how it breaks down. Thomas says Peterson stopped his chart before the start of the Industrial Revolution. Right. Yes, exactly, Thomas. Like, oh, you stopped your chart like right before we actually started polluting so dramatically. Like, Jesus. Like, it's I think it's probably a combination of the most embarrassing and the most dangerous thing he's ever done. Like, way to try to delude your followers, man. Like, in big, like, cultish kind of ways. Oh, I have no idea, radio. Oh, thanks, Mocked. Mocked says, I love your commentary, John. It never gets old. I appreciate that a lot, Mocked. I gotta be honest with you, man. Sometimes I do think the bottom's just gonna drop out all of this whole thing. That I'm gonna show up, hit record, and nobody's gonna come. You know? And so it's nice to hear that, Mocked. I really appreciate that. Grinning. As an American, I always like hearing from people from the colonies. Thanks, Grinning. I needed that laugh, dude. That's nice. Thomas. Book Making Money Work for Us. How MMT Can Save America and Canada. November 2022. Register for... Are you selling books in the chat, Thomas? Is that what's happening? No, Thomas. Peterson has schizophrenia. Like, that's what it is. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia when he was in a coma, right? He went into a coma, and then afterwards he had a psychiatric evaluation, and they came back that he was schizophrenic. He denies it, of course, and wrote a whole article on it about how dangerous this kind of behavior is and blah, 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 because he doesn't want to admit that, you know, he has schizophrenia. And he's got, like, all the signs of it. Like, I've got a cousin who has schizophrenia, and I'm just like, yeah. Like, it's all right there. And it's getting worse as he ages. Right? It's getting worse as he ages. So, if you ask me, like, if I was a betting man, like, I just think that Peterson has schizophrenia. He's way in over his head. Right? Like, when he started this whole thing, like, I think he was basically just selling books and attaching it to his clinical psychology stuff. But as it's moved on, that's no longer really making money for him. And he's just following the money, right? So that's it. He's just following the money, using his clout, and carrying on the momentum of his book sales. And it's pretty clear that, like, if it wasn't the truth that he had sold out at the beginning, it's certainly the case now. That he's just, like, basically a gun for hire, right? Oh, yeah, dude. Doug Ford bashing? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I just think that, like, if Doug Ford accidentally slipped in his bathtub and didn't recover, I would be okay with that. I don't think it would be a tragedy. I might actually mark the day as a day of celebration if such a thing were to happen to a man like Doug Ford. Oh, you're the real Nazi. Yeah, you're the real bad guy. You just want people hurt. You are the one that wants people hurt. How dare you fight back? You should take the boot on your face and smile and like it, and if you don't, and if you fight back, then you're the Nazi. You are the one that is bad. Yeah, so Doug Ford, may something bad happen to you. Like, really, I hex thee. If I had the ability to hex people, I would definitely do that. Just I don't even know what it sounds like or what it does. If I was like a warlock from D&D, I would definitely like cast a spell to make bad luck happen to you, and things would happen that were bad. Ligand Disease says, John, I could care less about your broken recordness. The place is through and through illegitimate, so I could put up with it. Oh, that's kind of you, bud. I like that you're sticking around because you're desperate. That's what I always like to say. Oh, God, we must be desperate. We're listening to me. Yeah, 80% Jello, 20% poop. Poop. Watson. Yes, Dougie Dum Dum is giving his donors some private health care off our backs. You know me, folks. I'm for the little guy, Dougie Dum Dum. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Thomas, by the way, not selling books, inviting all to read along with the upcoming Zoom book club. Fantastic, dude. Fantastic. I think that education is important. People got to know. We should read theory. We definitely should. All these stuff. Yeah, I love this. People are like, dude, if you want to talk to me, come over to YouTube. Talk to me on YouTube. I'm probably not going to explain to you why capitalism has failed, because you could just use your eyes for that. Black magic spells. Don't ask a question like that, Tinker. Come on, buddy. This chat's gonna take a real pivot. We're gonna do a real pivot into some like dark voodoo stuff. Ugh. Yep. From CUPE, the Canadian Union of Public Employees. Ford's plan to expand private clinics in Ontario will cost patients dearly, risk lives, and significantly worsen staffing shortages, healthcare unions say. 5 major Ontario healthcare unions are calling on the Ford government to not move forward with its plan to siphon provincial funding from public hospital care and hand it to private, for-profit surgical clinics, a risky venture that will cost Ontarians dearly and damage access to public care. The unions, Ontario Nurses Association, Healthcare and Unifor, CUPE, OPSEU, and say that this move will further starve our public healthcare system of funding and divert frontline staff to enrich private shareholders and diminish access to publicly delivered healthcare. Patients will wait even longer for healthcare under this scheme and should not be misled into believing that they will not pay out of pocket. They say that since coming to office, this government has implemented policies to demoralize healthcare workers, worsen the staffing shortages, and cause burnout through heavy workloads and low wages. Funding private clinics will further damage the ability of Ontario's public hospitals to provide high-quality care and make it even more challenging to retain frontline staff. History shows that for-profit clinics siphon staff from public hospitals, focus their business on providing services for patients with the least complex medical needs to maximize profits, and leave public hospitals to care for patients with multiple, severe, and expensive-to-treat conditions. Death rates and costs are higher in for-profit surgical centers. For-profit clinics, long-term care homes, and nursing agencies have already cost Ontarians enormously and have seriously worsened the staffing shortages in our public system. With rising living costs and inflation, Ontarians need investment in publicly delivered health care, not a model that will use public funds to generate private profits while decreasing access for all. Rather than divert funding from public hospital care to privatized clinics, the government must invest in our cherished public healthcare system, implement a substantive public hospital staffing retention program, and fund its public hospitals at least at the rate of the Canadian hospital average to deal with population growth, aging, and inflationary pressures. Ugh. Strut YX says, "Hey man, I'm from TikTok. Keep doing what you're doing. Thanks, Strut. I appreciate it, bud. I really do. I'm in a downbeat of a mood. I mean, it's January. I don't have any vitamin D in my system, and I'm full of gluten. So it's I'm in a downbeat. So hearing that, it's a really beautiful thing. Thank you so much for making the journey. I appreciate that. It's lovely when people make the journey only to pay me a compliment or to give me encouragement. That's very, very sweet of you, bud. I really, really appreciate that." Grinning says, "Stories from my Pentecostal past. There was a prophecy that God would judge people for resisting the pastor's leadership. 2 weeks later, 2 widows died. It was proof. God blessed the church." Yeah, dude. Yeah, dude. Watson says, "Wait a minute. Are some TikTok freedom fighters going to come here and get a can of whoop ass? Probably not, dude. Like, probably not. Like, it's funny to me, man. Like, these guys, they talk tough. Right? They say a lot of shit, but they can't even make the journey to like some other app, right? It's too hard. They're too hard done by. They literally can't click a link and like download an app, right? It's too much for them, and because they know they'll get here and just be shut down. Like they know, either they'll just be banned because they don't understand basic manners, right? And if you don't understand basic manners, don't make the trip. Like don't make the trip. If you don't understand basic manners, don't make the trip. Spare yourself the time, right? But then they know they'll come over and they don't know anything. Like all they have is just like the CIA buzzwords that are in their brain, right? That's it. All they know is that every time the word communism is said, it pings off their lizard brain to go, "Communism is bad. I know that because I've been told so by the CIA." And like they know they're gonna come over here and get completely schooled. They know they don't know anything. They like not only do they not know anything about communist countries or communism, they don't know anything about their own country. And so like they're just gonna get dunked on, and they know it, so they don't bother. Thomas. And so what does happen? Just before I move on from this thought, so what does happen is that the people who do make the trip, right, are either so fucking dumb that they think they're going to have an impact and they're just going to get deleted. Or they're good people because they see what's happening and they think, "Oh, you know what? I want to come over and actually talk to this guy and have this guy talk to me." And I've had more than a couple of people come through on TikTok, right? So it's the TikTok to communism pipeline. We got it. Just like there was the alt-right pipeline that happened. Well, we're setting up the communist pipeline. Here we go. Building the communist pipeline. Here we go. No, there's been more than that, Grinning. I just don't think you've been around. That Grinning says that's the first positive comment from TikTok I've heard. No, there's been more than that. There's been more than that. There's been good people who have come over, and people who I've actually managed to push and make contact with Socialist Action. Right, so socialistaction.ca, really good group of people. They're Trotskyists, but they're good people. That's for you, Watson. I said that just for you. As soon as all Canadian voters know that the currency issuing self-government of Canada can easily afford the cost of high-quality healing care for every citizen and welcome visitors to Canada, like, there will be a rapid change. I mean, we'll see. Like, it does come down to the people, right? And I just think that the people are pretty weak, frankly. Yeah, Watson, I know exactly what you're talking about, bud. Yeah, it's inside baseball stuff. I like that, inside baseball. That's a good way of talking about it, right? Like it's Look, bottom line. Like, you want to get to the bottom line with this organization, right? And you can criticize, you can say what you want, you can get at the Trotsky-Stalin thing if you want, and do all that kind of stuff. Bottom line, they show up. That's all that matters to me. Like, straight up. Like, when I go to protests, they are there. That matters a lot to me. And when I organize protests and when I try to put stuff together, they show up. And my only lament is that I don't have enough time to really strategize and organize with them more effectively, right? Like, and to me at this stage in the game, like you can have your little book club, right? You can be like Fight Back, right? And Fight Back is a fine organization, very large organization, does very well on campuses and things like this, right? But they seem to be just a book club, and that's fine. And I think that's good for class consciousness building, and they're very involved in social media and all that kind of stuff. But like, they don't really show up. Like, they'll go to a gay pride parade and recruit people for their book club, but they won't actually show up at the legislature. You know? So I'm going to go with the people who show up when we need them. Yeah, we the people are out to lunch, dude. Absolutely oddity. Strut says, I've been a Marxist-Leninist for 2 years now, and I always see you on my For You page, but can't be bothered to come in and argue with people who say the same points. It's good to see you going on. By the way, opinion on revisionism. I mean, anytime anybody says the word revisionism, it's basically just lying, right? Like, these are the events that happened, but we say they happened differently, right? Like, I don't really go for that. I'd rather like see the events that happened and look at the events as they happened and base my opinion on the events as they happened. And if those events don't align with my dogmatic view of the world or my dogma, then it's the dogma that needs to change, right? That's it. It really is as simple as this. Like, if I'm walking around going, I bet 1 + 1 is equal to potato. I bet 1 + 1 equals potato. 1 + 1 equals potato. Potatoes are equal 1 + 1, and then somebody like no, 1 + 1 is equal 2, and it's like there it is. I got to change my tune, and I got to do it immediately. And I actually think that's something that buys me a lot of credibility, because I've said things and been wrong, right? Obviously, it's almost impossible to get it right every single time. And the second you can show me something that shows me that I'm wrong, right? I'll change my tune, and I'll do it on the spot. Because I'd rather go with what's real and what's factual than try to make it fit my weird, kooky little idea or ideology. It just doesn't work that way, right? And if you do that, then you just end up with like a weird little kooky cult that kind of collapses eventually, right? And it's just annoying. And like, it's the reason why we're careening to total disaster here in the West. It's because we've banked on an ideology that no longer matches reality. And the people who are doubling down on the idea that, no, it's capitalism, you need to work hard and grind set and all that kind of stuff, like, they're just grind setting themselves into a brick wall, right? We're heading there very fast, because reality is going to assert itself. Like, reality is asserting itself. Like, it's going to keep asserting itself. And we're just going to keep Sigma grind setting or whatever. Right? We're just going to keep, like, double down on the grind. Let's go. And we're just going to get completely ramrodded. Right? We're just going to get completely ramrodded. And while we're getting completely ramrodded here in the West, the rest of the world population, like, really think about how big a botch this what's going on in Eastern Europe is for the West. That we literally took the Russians and chased them into the hands of the Chinese. That the Chinese and the Russians went through the Sino-Soviet split, where they actually broke with one another. And that drives the Russians into the hands of the West. Right? Well, now the West has done it back to Russia. And the Russians, without even being communists, are just fleeing into the hands of the Chinese. Like, it's as big a botch as you could possibly fucking imagine. And we're just, like, here for it. We're all just like, yeah, USA, USA. Yeah, we're the greatest country in the world. Watson says SA is good on the homelessness stuff. Yeah, they're terrible with their critiques of unions and building outside the NDP, similar to Fight Back, by the way. Yeah, they do seem pretty married to the NDP, although in this last election, at least in the city, they were running outside of the NDP and they were running their own candidates. And of course, they didn't get like a big, powerful showing because nobody knows who they are, and it was their first kick at the can. But I think that they are beginning to lean away from the NDP. I think they're starting to see that the NDP is basically positioned itself to become the new liberal party, right? That they're basically just orange liberals at this point. And any promise of any serious reformism or serious reaction from the left coming out of the NDP, I think they're starting to understand is dead in the water. Like it's just not going to happen. So if the voters of Canada are kept away from knowing, they are not stupid, they are not knowing, and can only act on knowledge if they've been taught. Some are withdrawing types, some are aggressive types, some are adjusting types. That's a fair thing to say, Thomas, you know, and it's fair to, maybe I am being a bit too hard. Like, we are facing up against like a like multi-billion-dollar disinformation system, right? Like CSIS and the CIA exist as systems of disinformation in order to ensure the populace remains ignorant and illiterate. Like it's not happening passively, and I think that is a fair thing to point out and a fair thing to say. That it's not so much that we are just passively dumb. It's that there is an active attempt by the powerful to ensure that we remain in the dark, and that voices who are standing up. So, and what's so hilarious about our culture is that we're all standing up and screaming about how free speech is the most important thing. There's no fucking free speech. Like, what are you talking about? There's no free speech, right? Martin Luther King was literally assassinated by the FBI. A channel like this gets deprioritized on the algorithm like absolutely insane. Miguel coming in here with the Venezuela comment again. Bro, do you forget the last time that happened? How embarrassed you got? Like, do we have to go through it again? Like, I didn't ban you last time, dude, because you just ran away. Right? The sad fact, Tsar Vladimir gave up a nice job from which he could enjoy a living retirement and chose to leave office, murdered by his successor. Shouldn't we be having a discussion on the coming one-year anniversary of the well-financed Freedom Convoy and its occupation of Ottawa last year? I don't know. Should we? Like, what were the things that we really learned about the Freedom Convoy over this last year? I still somewhat maintain my position that the government acted dramatically inappropriately. That it seems to kind of it seems to just be swept underneath the rug, right? It seems to just kind of go away. Like the evocation of the Emergencies Act, the incarceration, like without trial, essentially, of the organization and the leadership. Like, and I don't think that they justified it. Like, liberals tend to disagree, right? Yeah, forget the fascist convoy and the fascist government response. And I don't know, dude. Like, I'm yet to be convinced. Like, I about the fact that, like, the organizers and the people who were involved in the convoy themselves, like, it's not like they were like the Third Reich or something. It's not like they were like a highly organized militia or something. It's just like a ragtag group of libertarian-minded people who really don't have a well thought out ideology. And you can see that it's not well thought out. Like, you just go to their website, and it's just like, we should promote business. Like, that's not a statement. That's not like a thought, you know? Like, they don't really have an analysis. That's really kind of the bottom line for me about if you want to focus on the convoy itself. Right? Forget about the government, although I think that the main talking point, the major thing we should be talking about is how the government responded and how disgraceful the government response actually was. right? They like literally like it happened and they're pulling out the saber, right, and stabbing people. Like the very first thing they do is pull out a gun. I'm just like not here for that, and I don't think that that's an appropriate way for a government to act against its own people and its own citizens, right? And the Freedom Convoy itself, like, they're just a group of fucking dudes. Like they don't have anything. They literally are just like, I want to drive a truck. Like that's it. That's the statement that comes out of these guys. They don't have like an analysis of their society. They don't have an analysis of their culture. They don't have anything other than, and this is something I always said about the fucking government. Was like, how bad do you have to screw up to alienate these guys? Like these guys literally, all they wanted, 100%, all they wanted was to just sit in their goddamn truck and drive. That's it. That's all they wanted. Like, how bad do you have to fuck up to alienate these guys so badly that hundreds of them are showing up at the Capitol? Like, it's a botch by the government from start to finish. It's a botch by the Trudeau Liberals from start to finish. And just the high level... And if you ask me, Trudeau and his cabinet basically acted like princesses. Like literally like, oh, dearest me. Dearie me, oh goodness me, I cannot believe that these people are coming to the... Oh goodness me, these people are far-right Nazi fascists, oh my goodness, oh dearest me. Like, that's how they acted the entire time. I think they're embarrassing. Like, I think the Trudeau Liberals are embarrassing. And, like, it's like... yeah, the Freedom Convoy was disruptive. Yeah, it was just a bunch of fucking assholes. But, like, they're not organized. They're just like a ragtag bunch of goons, and they don't really have like a stated agenda. It's not like they're walking around with a fucking document that's being like, we should round up the Jews. Like, it's literally, if you go look at what their demands are, it is things like investment in business. We should be able to do the business better. Like, they don't have anything else. And so I just don't know why we should ever bother committing any energy, power, or analysis to the Freedom Convoy outside of saying, yeah, these guys were like alienated dudes who wanted to do something about it. Like, they didn't have like a manifesto. They didn't have anything. Like, literally, they were just like, honk honk freedom. Like, it's as half-baked as it gets. And in comparison, the response by the government is way, way, way more interesting. Way more worthy of analysis. Way more worthy of conversation. And in my view, like, I grew up in rural Manitoba. Right? I grew up in rural Manitoba. I know these guys. Like, I know these guys. I used to pump gas for these guys. Like, I know who these guys are, right? I know the type of people that they are. And to me, to like categorize them as fascist even, it's just like, it just gives them more credit than they're due. Like, they barely register on the political compass at all. Like, their demands and their desires are so obvious and so absolutely apparent and blatant to anyone. Which is that they just wanted to get in their goddamn truck and be left alone. That's it. That's all they wanted. That's all they ever wanted. And then they're thrust out on the stage because they made this big stink, and people demanded of them to make big political comments or have a manifesto or any of this, and they don't know how to do any of that. They don't know how to do any of that. And yeah, you can find a clip of like Pat King, and yeah, you can find people saying shitty stuff. Absolutely, you can do that, right? But, like, at the end of the day, like, these guys were not a threat, an existential threat to Canada, ever, at any moment, ever, right? Like, the worst thing they did was block a bridge for a while, which was de-escalating as the legislation got passed, right? Like, under no circumstances were these guys an existential threat to anything other than the legitimacy of the government and the wallet of people like David Thompson. Like they weren't a security threat. They weren't a threat to anybody. Here's Watson saying, it was 3 weeks long. Shouldn't we be concerned of the elements of the military? Various levels of police seem to be involved. So what's the assertion? Like, is it that this was going to genuinely become a coup? Like, is that a coup attempt? Like, and I'm not asking that to be dismissive. I'm not trying to dismiss you here, Watson, because that's actually something that we have to start taking seriously in the collapse of capitalism, right? We have to actually start taking seriously the idea that people are going to attempt to do coups, right? We have to start taking that seriously. January 6th happened. January 8th happened, right? The Bolsonaro's followers in Brazil attempted a coup. The Capitol Hill riot, or whatever the hell you want to call it, in January 6th happened, right? And so Watson's suggesting, right, not a coup yet, but sort of a dry run, right? And, you know, there's it isn't an illegitimate thing to say. My only kind of counter to it is that I just, like, when the people within the convoy movement talk about that kind of thing, I don't think it's actually taken seriously by the followers. Like, I think it is a different sort of a thing. Yeah, and this is correct too. Never mind, there seems to be a multinational rise of virulent right wing that seems to be well financed. Yeah, and but the question is that the character of the Freedom Convoy, right? To me, it's not simply enough to, because again, like, these guys were just a bunch of, like, rural bumpkin guys, right? Like, it's scary that they showed up with heavy equipment, right? Like, that to me is actually the scariest part. That, like, when the Capitol Hill riot happened, and when January 8th happened, and, like, things like Occupy and like protest movements generally, it's just people showing up and doing what people can do and carrying what they can carry, essentially. But these guys showed up with heavy hardware, right? They had semi-trucks and shit. Like, that by itself does escalate things and creates a very sticky situation for people. But I think in this particular situation, because, like, if they wanted to do a coup, they probably could have, right? They could have attempted it at least. Like, I just don't know, like, why show up at the Capitol and sort of set up a camp? Like, to me, that's the actions of a legitimate protest. That people who want to do a coup are going to show up and try the coup, right? Like, the January 6th, it wasn't like a camp happened and then a coup attempt. January 8th, it wasn't like a camp happened and then a coup attempt, right? That, like, it seems to me like most of the people who were involved in the Freedom Convoy were there as a legitimate protest movement and understood it as a protest movement. So, but your skepticism, I think, is well warranted, and we should keep a sharp eye on it, without a doubt. But I worry that we are allowing the government to make up excuses, essentially just say, we were scared. It was possible. They could have done it. It was within the realm of possibility. They could have rammed the Parliament building with a truck. It was within the realm of possibility. Like, I haven't seen them say anything that I consider to be particularly damning or even interesting. Like, during that whole, like, the government justifying its usage of the Emergencies Act, I didn't hear anything that made me go like, oh yeah, that warranted it. That there was a clear and present danger. I just never believed it. I was always just like, nah. CR Strifey, good to see you, bud. Public unions in Ontario are as much to blame for the movement to privatization as any evil conservative plot. Creating and protecting bloated pencil pusher jobs that do nothing but absorb tax money. Absolutely, I agree with this. That feed the union fund, just as greedy as any right-wing organization. Yeah, I tend to agree with you, CR Strifey. Like, I think the unions themselves have been fairly co-opted. I talk about this all the time on the stream, right? that the unions themselves have been largely co-opted by the capitalist structure. They've been integrated, right? If they can't be destroyed, then they'll be integrated. And it seems as though the integration is largely a reason why this is happening, without too much response, frankly. That, like, we're getting a sternly worded letter from Koopy, right? Like a sternly worded letter, but sternly worded letters can be ignored. You can just take that and throw that in the wastebasket, and that's what the Ford administration is going to do. Another failure of the West to not prevent starvation. That was never mind. They are finding that the Brazilian coup was. Sorry, dude. I think you had some spelling things here, but I'm going to try and parse it. They are finding that the Brazilian coup was CIA-let when they didn't respond when called for support. I know that Bolsonaro was involved. That we've got the documents. That it was his ministry of his minister of, was it the Interior? One of his ministers had his place raided, and literally we have documents that show very cleanly that that Bolsonaro was involved in it, to the degree where, and like the difference between what the Venezuelan response to that coup and the American response is pretty stark. Like 1,500 people got arrested the week of in Venezuela. Like 1,500 people got. There are certain conservatives that are not being permitted to take their seats. They're being banned from the parliament for their involvement in the coup attempt. Like, serious things are happening. Like, imagine if that coup happened and Donald Trump literally went to jail. Like, that's the scale that we're talking about. And Bolsonaro fled to Miami, right? Bolsonaro fled to Miami. Did I say Venezuela? I meant Brazil. Thank you, Centaur. I appreciate it. Dude, my brain is like pudding right now, and I kind of have to pee again. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? I am getting old. Oh my god. Rebel media watchers, yeah. Marianne, how you doing? Hope you're here to be beautiful. What are your opinions on anti-Semitism and anti-Semites? Disgusting. Just disgraceful. Right? Just disgraceful. Like, it's pointless. There's nothing to it. It's the lowest of low-hanging fruit for the dim-witted mind. That, like, literally you're faced with a societal problem and someone comes up to you and goes, "It's the Jews." And you go, "It's the Jews." Like, you're a very dim-witted person. And an unserious person. Like, you're only serious because of how dangerous you are. And it's so dumb. Like, there's absolutely nothing to it. Like, there's nothing there. It's like, so what you'll see quite often is they'll point at George Soros and be like, George Soros, the billionaire, is doing this, that, and the other thing. And all it functions as is a way for the billionaire class to protect the class by scapegoating the weak, right? And because Jews are always a minority, right, they are an easy scapegoat. It's easy to point at them and say, haha, it's them that's the problem, because there aren't enough of them to be able to fight back effectively should the mass of the public, and not even the mass of the public, but just a small portion of the public, actually turn against them. And it's so easy to do because, of course, there are Jews at all levels, right? There are Jews here, there are Jews here, there are Jews here, there are Jews here, there are Jews here. I work with a Jewish man, right? Like, he's one of the cooks. Like, it's and if we really all wanted to be like, you know what, we're losing business and everything's going badly, you know what it must be? The Jews. Like, yeah, we could do that. It's stupid. Like, it's the definition of dumb. Like, it's the definition of dumb. That and it's convenient for the wealthy to do it. That's the real truth. Because if we all get whipped up and turn our Sauron's eye against this small minority group that obviously are not manipulating world politics, but they are just like involved in world politics like the rest of us, and change our analysis from an analysis of class to an analysis of race, then yeah, we'll spend all our time doing that and then be left with the billionaire class anyway. And the billionaires will be like, yeah, we did it. We got rid of the Jews. Everything's better now. Like, it's just a bait and switch. Like, it's a con. And only the extremely dim-witted fall for it. Especially because we've seen it so many times. Like, it's such an obvious ploy. Yeah. Watson Roadster. I'm not a fan of Mr. Trudeau, but there was an attempt on his life a couple of years ago by an active military member, former general. Mr. Macedonia I'd like to see that, actually. Was there a legitimate attempt on Trudeau's life? How do I not know about that? For real. Like, when there was an attempt to, when someone attempted to get Harper, they didn't shut up about that. I was like blaring across the news for forever. How do you miss an attempt on Trudeau? Like, I think I heard more about the time they threw gravel at him. The title of this live chat, Capitalism, is better described as financial extractionism is a death cult. Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So, capitalism? Oh my god. I cannot believe this, guys. I have to go use the bathroom again. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's embarrassing. This is embarrassing. I'm embarrassed. But such is life. There's nothing I can do about it. Such is life. That's what I get for drinking. Drinking water. Always remember, kids, drink your water. Drink so much water that every hour you gotta go use the bathroom. Right? Make it happen. I know why this is happening. It's because I ate gluten today. That's what's going on. I ate gluten, and so my body is like, gotta flush this gluten, man. Gotta get it out of your system. Get it out of your system faster, Jonathan. This is what I get for eating a scone and a biscuit and a little bit of pizza. It wasn't a small amount of gluten, guys. I ate way more gluten than I should have. I know it. I know this to be true. And I'm sorry. I'm deeply sorry. I apologize from the bottom of my heart. With all the gravy I have in my soul. I apologize. Desperately trying to get it out of my system. I have so much gluten. Not shockingly, the viewer count in TikTok plummeting. Plummeting down to earth. Ugh. Watson says, look, we have the testimony from the January 6th inquiry that the various levels of police in Washington basically stood down for an hour and a half, allowing things to take place as they did. Why? Oh, yeah, in January 6th, I actually think that's right. Like, I think that there was larger involvement, for sure. And I think it's stuff like this, these testimonies, that really show that that's the case. But, like, what's so weird about the January 6th, like, coup, and I think a big reason why the Democrats aren't being more hard-nosed about it, is because they know it wouldn't really change anything. Right? Like, so Donald Trump does a coup and gets in there and coups it. And now Donald Trump is the president again. Post-coup. Okay. What actually changes? Like, how is it different? It's the country is still being largely led by the military-industrial complex. That doesn't change. The country is still largely subservient to corporate power structures and corporate power interests. That doesn't change. Donald Trump works for those institutions, right? So him going in and being like, I'm the leader of this place. I'm the king shit of Turd Mountain. Okay. That's why I never really, like, I think there are some people who kind of lost their minds about it and are just like, about it. And my opinion is basically like, it's just WWE shit, right? It really is. That like, it's just politics in America are just vanity projects. It's just people being like, I'd like to be the congressperson. I could be the mayor of New York, right? But they're not actually trying to do politics in any way that we would understand politics, right? They're just happy to be the person. They're just like, oh, I'm the congressperson. What do you want me to do, big gigantic conglomerate? Yes. Stamp. They're essentially just a rubber stamp. Like, in many cases, the legislation they pass is literally written by the corporation that they stamp it for. Like, and it really is as straightforward as, here's the legislation, here's a bunch of money, here's your rubber stamp. Like, and it really is that straightforward in many, many, many cases. And so, like, so Donald Trump successfully does a coup. Like, how many times do I say, like, there is going to come a moment where the military and where the actual rulers of the country are just going to rule nakedly, right? Like, something like a coup is likely to happen. Like, the democracy exists as an illusionary system of theatrical control exclusively. It's like bread in circuses. It doesn't actually function. It doesn't actually do anything outside of just empower the people who are actually in charge in the first place, right? That if it does have a function, it's just to say yes to the rulers and to allow them to negotiate with one another through surrogates, so they don't need to negotiate directly, right? And it has this idea of democracy attached to it, so the illiterate masses will be like, we're a democracy, I know, because I put a paper in a box, and it matters if it's this guy or this guy, right? When really these guys are just like go-betweens between Bill Gates and Bezos. That if the institution of if the democratic system of America were to collapse and be discarded into the waste bin, well, the powerful would still need some kind of organization, and so they would create one, and it would just be non-democratic. They literally would just be like, this is my assistant, this is the representative of the Gates Foundation, right? And Bezos would be like, this is the representative of the Bezoses, this is the representative of the Musks, right? And they would all negotiate with one another, because they want to split up the spoils and they want to step on each other's dicks as little as possible. That's the long and short of it, right? So the idea that Donald Trump's like storming in there with a coup and going to cause all kinds of problems, not really. Like, not really. You know, like it's very theatrical. It makes for a lot of theater. But the truth is that, like, Biden came in and Biden's the same. Like, how's he different? He's the same, right? And compare that to Brazil, right? Lula is different, right? That the socialist government that just got elected is a different government, and what they are doing is actually different, because politics in Brazil is actual politics. It's not theater, like it is in America. In 2000, from Thomas, in 1910, Theodore Roosevelt, running as a bull moose, said he would be called a communist to say that human rights are more important than property rights. He did not mean communist, he meant socialist. Yeah, I mean, big surprise. Like, oh, what? An American doesn't understand what communism is? Get out of here, Thomas. That doesn't sound like the America I know. The America I know is full of stalwart, well-educated people who absolutely know what they're talking about. Time for a walk around the graveyard. Oh, yeah, I haven't done those in a long time, dude. I kind of want to get back to them. I kind of do. I just had someone tell me the Bolsheviks were financed from Jew money from New York. Yeah, old Nazi trope. Classic. Oh, do we have somebody in here? Communism never worked. Yeah, because China doesn't exist. We had communism in East Europe. Hundreds of people were killed by the government. We were poor. Everybody was. A neighboring capitalist country, richer than ever. That's interesting, because a lot of those nations want to return to communism. Why do you think that is? And, like, at what time, Adrian? Was it, like, during the capitalist coups? Is that what we're talking about? Like, you're not 80, right? So you're a young person. So you only kind of hear about it, right? So is it during, like, the capitalist collapse and the neoliberal upsurgence? Are you blaming communism for things that happened under capitalism again? Oh, yeah. Classic. Which is why in a self-government, the voters know they can retire with a federal pension at age 50. Those they elect. America is going to be carved up like Africa. Yeah, with no fucks given for those at the borders. Yeah, I think, like, well, America is already carved up, right? Like, the borders are essentially like a carving up of America, and the billionaire class is basically just going to claim states, right? Like, Gates knows it, right? Gates is the one who's actually, like, at the forefront. He's really aware of it. It's very, very clear that he has had several conversations, and he's the guy that had the light bulb moment, if you ask me, more than anyone else. Because Bezos has just been focused on building his little empire, right? And so Bezos is actually well behind Gates. Gates built an empire called Microsoft, right? And now he's made the pivot into actually empire building. Because Bill Gates is buying land. Bill Gates buys land. And Bill Gates is the number one farmer in America, right? And the number one farmer in America is the number one landowner. Like, so he's claiming the food and gaining the food infrastructure and being and embedding himself as a necessity into the system, right? And the meanwhile, like, Bezos is just interested in Amazon, right? And building technology and shooting rockets at space and like that kind of thing. Musk is like the leader of a bunch of companies that are all basically going to result in not much of anything. Like, we're not going to Mars. The idea that we need SpaceX is stupid. We have NASA. Like, the idea that like we're privatized spaceflight, that's a good idea, right? Absolutely, the best idea ever. Like, it was always a front for the militarization of space. That's always what it was. But like, moving into the next era, it's Bill Gates that's going to have the longest impact, I think. The rest of the billionaires have sort of fallen into kind of self-ingratiation and vanity, more or less. Whereas I think Bill Gates actually understands how to build an empire and what empires are built of, which is land. Read The Attempt on Trudeau's Life, WSWS, from January 13th. Title, Growing Support for the Far Right and Targeting of Trudeau Within Canada's Military. Interesting. I'll definitely take a look at this, dude. Because, I mean, that's something I actually take very seriously. Targeting of Trudeau within Canada's military. Like, even when they were going after Harper, right? Like, he's still our prime minister. You know, he's still the leader. Like, I know people who voted for him. And so the idea that like some lone gunman should be able to get at him and target him is like, I'm not a huge fan of this, honestly. Graveyard walk videos are incredibly based. Thanks, Oddity. I appreciate that. I should do one about Doug Ford, dude. I absolutely should. I'm going to be out and about tomorrow. Maybe I'll just do one. I don't know why I've been kind of resisting it. I feel like I've kind of hit a block in a way. It's like writer's block, but it's like my own life. Like, I'm struggling with like the dishes. You know what I mean? Like, just like basic chores and basic things. And this kind of has fallen into that, where I don't know what it is. I've got some kind of block going on where I can't seem to punch through it. But we're all struggling together, so that's fine. Command Genius, absolute pleasure to see you, bud. I was arguing with my dad about communism, and he was saying that communism would get rid of democracy, and that a revolution is bad because Jesus would want peace. He's a Nazbol, by the way. Fantastic. So an absolute contradiction, right? Like the Nazbol ideology is like a complete contradiction. It doesn't function, even on paper. It doesn't function. Like, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Communism would get rid of democracy. That's cute, right? Like, the most of the communist countries were democratic. They just weren't Westminstery parliamentary democracies, right? Like, they were their own structures, right? And then and that a revolution is bad because Jesus would want peace. Yeah, the guy that whipped people in the market, or in the temple rather, real man of peace, right? Real man of peace. Yeah, China's communist, dude. The main party there is the Communist Party. Everybody calls it communist. Like, we know it's a communist party. Thomas, there is a famous futurist, Peter Zehan, who is frightened there will be no social security pension for him when he reaches retirement age. Yeah. Yeah, China calls itself socialist with Chinese characteristics. That its goal is to reach communism, and it thinks that it can achieve full socialism. I think by 2050 is their goal. And no, dude, like what, Adrian? What's the name of China's government? Just what's the name of China's government? Like, I suspect you don't know the first thing about China. What's the name of their government? Like, in America, you've got the Congress and the Senate, right? No. What's the name of the government of China? You seem well educated on the subject, spouting the nonsense that you're spouting. What's the name of their government? How did it come to be? The economy is about 35 to 40% capitalist. The rest is state-owned. Yeah, I know you don't know, dude. That's the whole point. Right? It's the National People's Congress. You can type it into Google. You can look it up. The National People's Congress. NPC. Ha ha ha. The market reforms that happened under Deng, right, convinced a bunch of people like yourself that, oh, China is capitalist now. Right? So a bunch of Westerners de-industrialized their own country and shipped it over to China, allowing China to get rich very, very fast, very, very quickly. But instead of China taking its wealth and letting it hoard under a couple of billionaires, it's actually spreading it into the populace, which is why you have like 800 million people lifted out of poverty over the last 30 years, right? That's not happening under capitalism, quite the opposite. Right? China is, and the goal always was to take the wealth that was created from opening up the markets and creating a more egalitarian structure, an egalitarian society. And that's exactly what they're doing. Like, you can see it. It's really clear that that's what they're doing. Like, did they shut down their borders and try to be like a fully communist society, like 100% isolationism? No. But They would prefer that their revolution work. And it clearly has. Like, pretty overwhelmingly has. To make any other claim, I think, is just embarrassing. Like, it's obviously worked. And what capitalists do by trying to take credit that, oh, it's actually capitalism, well, then they open up the door to say, like, well, then why isn't it happening here? If it's capitalism that's responsible for what happened in China, then why isn't it happening here? Because it's not happening here. Why not? I'm national conservative. I will watch your videos. Maybe you can convince me. Yeah, keep watching, dude. Keep watching. Keep watching. You won't be national conservative for very long. Right? The capitalism is a death cult. It is absolutely collapsing. We are living under a period of extraction and abandonment. And it's obvious at this point, dude. Like, I view myself not as an intellectual, not as somebody who is like crazy well-informed, not any of that kind of stuff. I think that there are better, more educated people, even in my own chat. All I am is the guy pointing at the emperor, standing naked in front of us, saying, that man is not wearing clothing. That is all I am doing. And I have seen people come into my chat and get convinced very quickly, because once you understand how obvious it is, you will turn against the people who are saying, no, that emperor, he's not naked, he's wearing invisible clothing. Yup, invisible clothing. Like, it just cannot be maintained. It's something that no serious person can keep real in their mind. That, like, if you are genuinely going to stand in front of me and try to say to me that capitalism has any validity as a system any longer, then I consider you about as intelligent as a flat earther, or somebody trying to convince me that Santa Claus is real. Like, I'm really there right now. Like, I don't think you can maintain your intellectual credibility and say that capitalism is good. Yeah. Yeah. National conservatives about this far. Finger and thumb about 1/8 apart from a fash. Yeah, that's true. Hey, Anemone. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well out there, Anemone. Yeah. General Franco claimed he was a conservative monarchy. Also a fascist. Yeah. Thriving. Grow. This is from Grinning. Thriving or growing of a child, animal, or plant. Grow or develop well or vigorously. The new baby thrived. Prosper, flourish. Capitalism's goal is not this. Yeah, that's right. And from Thomas, there are only two ways to capitalize industrial production, as all nations do today with private property, or return to the failed model of Stalin, no private property. Yeah. Thomas wants to open up the Stalin debate. Ugh. Ugh. Command Genius, my business class is filled with liberal propaganda, and sadly, it's kind of working on me. Yeah, of course, Command Genius. Like, if you get thrown into a tar pit, you get covered in tar. Even if you say to yourself, man, I wish I wasn't covered in tar. I'm going to do everything I can to clean off this tar as soon as I get out of this tar pit. Well, it's going to take a moment. You're going to get covered in tar. It's as simple as this. It's as simple as this. Oh, Thomas, I don't want to open the Stalin thing. I'm not interested. I'm not going to engage on that, okay? I'm not in the mood for that, dude. Your flaw in logic. I love it when sentences start like this, Santora. Your flaw in logic was shown at the beginning of your claim. There are not only two ways to industrialize. There are an infinite number. Yeah, Watson. I know you could go there, dude. I just don't care to. Like, you want to talk about inside baseball, right? You want to talk about inside baseball. Like, we Yeah, college classes are gish galops that we pay to listen to. Yeah, it does seem to be the case. Like, I don't want to say that I didn't get anything out of my university education. Like, I think unlike high school, university education, I think, is a little bit more, like, if you're actually there to be educated as opposed to get vocational training, there's like, I'll say it straight out, like, my university degree was absolutely instrumental to me moving away from fundamentalist Christianity. Like, there is absolutely no argument to be made that that's not a net positive for the society. That if we can create institutions that purge this superstitious mindset and purge this ideology out of the ranks of our citizenry, then that is a massive success. And we should definitely do it. And we should consider it to be a massive positive for the society. Like, we should be funding that. Oh, you created an institution that people voluntarily go to abandon superstitious ideologies, like there was a wizard 2,000 years ago who's coming back at any moment and is watching you masturbate. Like, we should absolutely be funding this. We should absolutely be doing this. And the idea that the exclusive reason, and it's not to besmirch people who went to school to get a trade. Like, that's completely valid, right? That's completely valid. But to think that that's the only thing that education is for, the only thing that we should be expecting to fund things for, right? I know, Watson, I hate to break it to you, dude. There's a space wizard by the name of Jesus Christ who is very interested in your masturbation habits. I'm sorry to tell you, dude. I really am. It's tough. It's tough to realize that in your older age. You kind of think back on your life going, oh my God. Yeah, I mean, like, the older I get and the farther I get away from it, the more silly it becomes, right? But it's, people live in this. Like, there are people who are there, and they genuinely base, like, big portions of the way they think about the world on this stuff. check out Grover Furr's book about Stalin. Khrushchev lied. Yeah. Look, Thomas, I'm going to tell you right now, right? I've said this to Watson several times. I'll say it again. I take a human perspective on these figures. That I find that people can get really like theoretical and really like what's the word on like that these people are exclusively just like a series of theoretical events that occurred. Like it's absolutely astounding what Lenin and Trotsky and Stalin and all of those people went through. It's absolutely incredible what happened. And it's absolutely like there is the expectation that these people would go through and not make errors and not make mistakes and not make catastrophic mistakes is ridiculous. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, these were the first people who were attempting to move in this direction towards communism at all. Like, the idea that they would succeed 100% and dunk on the entire system of international capitalism while simultaneously going through like schisms and separations internationally, not to mention internal strife and internal conflict. Like, it's a miracle they beat the Nazis, if you ask me. Like, it's a miracle they beat the Nazis, if you ask me. Like, it seems to me that we take these figures and we elevate them into a place that they don't belong, right? Like, these people are just people, and more or less, and I think this is true on all sides, more or less stood by their convictions and believed what they believed and were trying to do right by, and that's what makes it a really interesting story and an interesting conversation. And my biggest takeaway from all of it is, how do we prevent these schisms? How do we prevent these schisms? How do we continuously update and maintain ties? And how do we make it so that we're always looking outward, hand open, without ever clenching the fists and holding it against our chest? How do we get to that point? Because to me, that's like the history of communism within the Soviet Union. It's pretty obvious that those events happened, where there was a closing of the fist, a clenching to the chest, that internally and externally. And how do we get away from that? How do we make better decisions to keep ourselves open and keep it going? And I don't have the answer for that, but that to me is what I tend to focus on. I don't tend to care that much. Like, even if you stand in front of me and you take a moment where Stalin did this and it's a thing I don't like, I'll go like, yeah, probably, and you're probably right about it. Like, okay, like it doesn't ruin him. Like, I feel like there's always this thing that happens in this conversation. It happens with Mao, it happens with Deng, it happens with Xi Jinping, it happens with all of these guys, where people expect it to be like a checkmate, and I'm supposed to just throw up my hands and be like, oh, you're right, oh my god. And I'm never gonna do that. Like, unless these guys actually start doing like a fucking genocide, like the way that Hitler did, right? Unless these guys actually actively start pursuing self-destruction and annihilation, like we are, right? Then I'm probably gonna be like, yeah, I think that they were trying their best most of the time, right? And like, they're still people. They're still capable of pettiness and stupidity and ridiculous nonsense, right? I'm just not of a mind to be like, everything Stalin did was a catastrophe. Probably not, right? Probably not, honestly. Anyway, here I am saying that, like, I didn't want to get into the Stalin thing, but here I am talking about the Stalin thing. I tend to look at them as people, just like kind of blundering through the best they possibly can. CR Strifey, let's be honest, anyone who grew up Christian has masturbated in front of a crucifix. Yeah, if only because you got no other crucifixes are everywhere. There's nothing you can do about it. Dude, don't talk to me about nuns, man. Don't talk to me about nuns. Cross porn, yep, never considered that kink. Grinning guys, Christians control reproduction because they know that nobody is converting anymore. They need the babies to continue the faith. Thus, they don't want other sexual expressions to replace marriage. I think that's probably right. Mocked says, Kotkin is a right-wing historian who's pretty openly biased. He advocates for the free market system. Yeah. Russia was at the end of its rope when the Germans fell. I mean, probably, dude. Like, it was not a good experience for the Russians, dude. Like, but the truth is that the Russians won. They pushed back the Eastern Front. Yeah, but still, private property was never fully abolished. At most, the land and the means of production were collectivized. Yeah, because it's a big process, right? Like, I really hate this idea that people have that, like, you're going to elect, or there's going to be a revolution, and a government's going to come in, and they're going to be like, we're communists, and there's going to be like a flipping switch, and it's all going to happen. Like, no, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of time, and you got to, like, actually, like, if the government comes in and the government becomes dedicated to socialist and communist principles, well, that means that they've got to go around and start stamping capitalists out, right? They got to start smoothing out the sections of the society and creating new institutions. Like, really think about that. Like, if a government were to come into power today, let's say a government showed up, a party showed up and was just like, we are socialists or we are communists and vote for us and we'll make the telephone service cheaper, right? Like, Canadians get the worst service in telecommunications and pay the most in the developed world. So there's a platform, right? Even doing that, even just that, they'd have to build an entire institution. It would take them 4 or 5 years to do just that, right? So the idea that you can just like have a government and that government will do a million things all at once and there'll be no pushback or consequences and everybody will just go along with it and march step, like, it's not how it works. It's complex and difficult, and it takes a lot of time and dedication. And our system is designed to destroy that, right? Our system is designed to destroy that kind of thinking. That if a government were to get in through our electoral system and they actually did move forward on a public option, and they actually did do that, well, in 4 years' time, they'll be gone because the system will move against it in every imaginable way. The election will happen. Some far-right grifter will get in, or a liberal, which is just as bad. And the thing will be dismantled, right? That's the nature of our system. That the only things that we get out of our system, we get through hard-fought effort by surrounding the halls of power. They don't just give us these things because they're nice, right? Or that the system rewards them for it. Exactly the opposite is true. That the only time we move the bar at all is by showing up at their places of work and their homes and surrounding the halls of power. And so if you're relying on the idea that we're going to vote this guy in and then he's going to create an institution that'll change all kinds of stuff, well, in 10 years it'll be gone. Because that's the nature of the system. That's how it actually works. Content, socialist leaders made mistakes. The American forefathers made choices. To them and their liberal dogs, those blood-soaked men made no mistakes, but necessary steps. That's another good point, Content. That, like, the capitalists committing the genocide against the First Nations people, slavery, right? Like, these are choices that our system made, and you want to pair that up against some of the mistakes that the Soviet leaders made. Great, go right ahead. Show me the mass slave system that came out of the Soviet Union. Yeah, grinning. That's why it looks so ridiculous. Their stated goal is purity before God, but their real intent is to have babies that can perpetuate the church. Perpetuate the church forever. Perhaps if certain types would not call us records fascists and openly call for our deaths? I don't know what that's in reference to, Watson, but I would prefer that as well myself. And the people talking shit about Stalin or Mao or whatever, they would have surrendered their whole world to the Nazis. The sense that I get from the Trotskyists is that they genuinely believe that Trotsky would have kept the communist thing going. I think that that's more or less the sense that I get from and correct me if I'm wrong, but I really do think that people who are like Trotskyists and like are double down on Trotsky tend to believe that Trotsky would have done it better and would have actually like kept the communist dream alive. That the mistakes that Stalin made were mistakes that Trotsky would avoid. And that's more or less what I tend to gather from Trotskyists. But it turns into kind of a theory crafting sort of situation because like we don't actually know. Like maybe that's the thing, right? And that's always the kind of the great. I love that I was like I don't want to talk about it. Now here I am talking about it, but. Fuck. I blame you guys. I blame you guys entirely. Hope you guys are doing well out there in TikTok land. Yeah, I know I look like Ronnie, dude. I have a beard and glasses. Like, oh no. Like, I love it, man. I am blown away at the impact of this Ronnie McNutt figure. I gotta tell you. I'm never gonna say a bad word about this guy. That his legacy is living on. It's incredible. People are coming in here, and I just have a beard and I have glasses. That's it. That's the only like. You look at Ronnie McNutt, he looks nothing like me. He has a beard and he has glasses. Like that's the only thing. And people are like, you look like Ronnie. So I just think people want Ronnie to live, right? So Ronnie, you live on, I guess. Like I'm fine with that. I'll take Ronnie's torch and move it on forward. He seemed like a good guy, right? He was a war veteran. Fighting along socialist principles, and he got completely overwhelmed by reality and the abandonment, and so he ended his own life on stream. So wherever you are, Ronnie McNutt, God bless you. God bless you. I hope you're doing well. Your legacy lives on. Don't fuck with General Winter. Yeah, remember that one dude that said it was the cold that stopped the Nazis? I found out something about this, Command Genius. There is a YouTube video called "Oversimplified World War II" that talks about this. Has like 49 million views. I saw this because of Midwestern Marks, and 49 million views, and that's their claim. The claim is that the Nazi front on the Eastern Front was stopped because of the cold. And that's what they say. They're literally like, the Germans went in there, and then, oh, well, the cold happened, and then they moved on. It's just like, oh my God, like, no wonder people are so dumb. Like, no wonder the society is so stupid. Like, literally, they're listening to these, like, cartoon videos about big, gigantic, massive subjects where they're taking large, complex military operations and saying, winter! Like, yeah, we deserve everything that's coming for us, dude. Like, we deserve it. We are extremely dumb. Good to see you, Marcus. I'm going to get to your comment in a second, okay, bud? For all the might of the Germans and all the genius of their technology, they could not overcome a cold day. Meanwhile, such naturalists pretend they are naturally comfortable in the cold. Yeah, and, like, forget about, like, the mass mobilization of, like, 20 million people. Forget about the restructuring of the economy. Forget about like the major sacrifices, like the major sacrifices that the Russian people made in order to confront this looming dark and evil threat on their border. Like forget about the millions of people who died by the hands of the Germans. Forget about the update of technology. Forget about the building of new tanks. Forget about the new productive capacities. Forget about all of that. Nope, it was the cold. That's what did it. And one of the things I was actually thinking about, and I kind of want to do this on stream in front of everybody, right? Average winter temperature in Germany. The average winter temperature in Germany, 3.3 degrees Celsius. In Russia. Of course, they're not going to help me out with that. Average daily temperature. Here we go. Climate of Moscow. In the winter, temperatures normally drop to approximately -10. Like, it's colder. Is it so much colder? Is it like so much colder that your zeal to eradicate the Russians it has to be staunched? Like, I don't know, bro. It's just such a lame duck talking point that the fact that people say it with any seriousness shows you how unserious we are as a people. Like, we're deeply unserious as a people. We're deeply, deeply, deeply unserious as a people. Yeah. It was the Russian winter that stopped the Nazi advance. Actually, it was the 6 weeks in the summer the Nazis took to clean out Yugoslavia that ruined Operation Barbarossa. Yeah. Santora says Gen Z scared the shit out of the Supreme Court enough that the government voted to secure them just for doxing them, but not for Dems like Pelosi, whose husband was beaten. Yeah. Marcus Smith. How do you convince the middle class that the system that's provided a comfortable living for their family should be replaced with a gamble on communism? Marcus, we don't. Nothing is going to convince the middle class more than the system of capital itself. Because the comfortable living that was provided for their family was created by difficult work from unionists, labor movement organizers, communists, and socialists. That the system of capital was forced to respond. And so concessions were given, right? Concessions were given to the populace. The New Deal wasn't done because Roosevelt was like, we need to help people. It was being done because there were thousands of people outside of his door calling for a communist revolution, right? And so what they did is concessions bargaining, which is essentially what the New Deal is. That it's a series of concessions to the populace so long as the means of production remain in the hands of the wealthy. That's the entire shtick. And so the comfortable lifestyle that people have enjoyed comes out of that. Well, over the last 30, 40 years, that system has been dismantled. And what Gen Z and what many millennials have faced is the consequences of that dismantling. And the consequences of that dismantling are going to continue and spread rapidly. And so we do not need to spend much time convincing the middle class that the system needs to be replaced, because the system of capital itself will get that job done. And it's happening faster and faster. 60% of the society is living paycheck to paycheck. We're literally one crisis away, not even a big crisis, like a blown tire level crisis. We're one crisis away from having a major financial difficulty, right? So we don't need to convince them. We just need to be here to catch them, right? Because when the rug is pulled out from underneath them, when the thing bottoms out, the system that the oligarchs are attempting to erect is to funnel people into fascism, right? So if you imagine like a Plinko machine, right? And all the Plinko marbles are in the machine, and everybody's like, I don't know why we should change. We're all in the Plinko machine. Well, the bottom's going to come out. And so what we are doing is building what's underneath, right? And the CIA and CSIS and the powerful, with their billions of dollars and their huge apparati, and the military and all this, are trying to make sure that what's underneath is a funnel towards fascism. And what we need to do is build a system underneath that funnels people in towards communism, or at least socialism, right? So we don't need to convince anybody. Capitalism is going to convince them more than anything. The question is, where do they land? Who do they blame? What solutions do they reach for? Maybe that's the best way of saying it. So once they finally are convinced, because the system has finally failed them, what solutions are they going to reach for? And it's completely possible that they just say, oh, just get the military to round up the Jews who are responsible for the international banking system. That's completely on the table. 100% on the table. Right? Or, hey, maybe we should nationalize some of this stuff. Maybe we should take some of this stuff away from the capitalists, right? That's not widely on the table in regards to the mainstream media, but it's something that I'd like to put on the table, that I think should be on the table, so that instead of saying, hey, let's round up minority groups, we say, hey, fuck these capitalists. Like, these guys are obviously the problem. Like, obviously. And more specifically, it's not these guys that are the problem. These guys are in fact just the symptom. That the problem is actually the structure itself. Because the structure is generating these people, right? That it's built to empower the worst people in the society. And if we want to be rid of these people and rid of these structures, we've got to go after the system itself. Like, we got to go after the system itself. As an American, I can say with 100% certainty, I and other Americans have mastered the art of getting people to talk. It's the only way to run the clock down. Yeah. Oh, geez, it all jumped down. Command Genius about Ronnie McNutt. The Ronnie McNutt was a shock video. They're just edgy. I don't know, though, dude. Like, I feel like if it's just the edginess factor, like, it would go. Like, it would go already. Right? Like, Ronnie McNutt stuck around longer in the consciousness of people, anyway, who come in here, in any case, than, like, wars have. Right? Like, Will Smith basically slapped Chris Rock, and we all just stopped talking about it. But, like, for some reason, Ronnie McNutt's staying around. And I just don't know that has anything to do with edginess. Like, I have different perspectives on this particular event, but I won't go too much deeper into it. Thomas, either people get it right or they don't. K. Marx got it wrong, but it was only because he knew what he read about economics in the London Library. Only books on economy. What? Either people get it right or they don't? Nah. I actually do disagree with that. That's a fairly, like, fundamentalist view, and reality tends to not work that way. That it's usually a gradient, and you can be, like, mostly correct, right? And I mean, Karl Marx got it wrong? What are you talking about? Like, Karl Marx's critique of capitalism is one of the most accurate critiques of capitalism that exist. He didn't really create a blueprint forward. That's something that modern day Marxists are working on. And the trouble I have with the way people talk about the experiments and the things that we're doing is that they're acting as though there's already a blueprint, and there isn't. That, like, when the Chinese did market liberalism, a bunch of Western Marxists went, well, that's it, it's over. And you know who didn't? The Chinese. They didn't say so. They didn't think so. Right? And they've moved forward. It's been very successful for them, obviously. Like, pretty obviously. And it's like that Michael Parenti quote. It's like, Western Marxists support every revolution except the ones that succeed. And I just don't think we should do that. I think we should allow countries who want to move forward on socialist and communist and Marxist principles, which are largely a critique of the capitalist system, to explore and experiment and see how they can build their own nation based on those principles, because Marx didn't give them a blueprint, right? And we're all just learning from the things that are happening around us as we do it, while simultaneously dealing with an imperial core that's psychopathically bombing the shit out of us, right? Like, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, North Korea, these places were decimated. Like, some of these cities literally had, like, 80% of their infrastructure destroyed. Like, and so to be trying to embark on this idea and experiment with concepts and thoughts and all this kind of stuff while simultaneously defending yourself from a psychopath, right? It's quite an endeavor. And there's just no blueprint for it. It just doesn't exist. And we should really be taking a more let's see what happens kind of attitude about the things that people come up with and the ideas that people move forward on when it comes to Marxism. That unless it's literally let's give the means of production to capitalists, we should reserve our criticism a little bit more. Mock says a quarter of Hitler's initial invasion force died within the first 5 months of Operation Barbarossa, before General Winter and General Mud came. Yeah, that's more or less what I think too. Like if you want to talk about the effect that Winter had, that it was just like the nail in the coffin. That like it probably didn't help with their morale, but yeah, Ligand to Z, not just that channel, but all of YouTube history community, Simple History, Armchair Historian, Kings and Generals, LibFash Cringe, all of them. Yeah, it's like they open up a Wikipedia article, and their source is basically just the CIA, trust me, bro. Like, that's really what happens. And then they just put a fun little animation on it, and everybody just goes, that's what really happened. Smith, Ricardo, and Mills were wrong to focus on Ricardo value theory and that mistaken effort. Oh yeah, now you're getting into like the technicalities of the economics of it. Yeah, and that's all over the place. Like, not everybody gets everything right 100%. Like it'd be a goddamn miracle if that happened. And like there are people who we really venerate. Like Aristotle is the best example of this. Aristotle's an important figure in philosophy. He's an important figure in Western history. Aristotle's like a pretty key guy who said a lot of interesting stuff. He also believed that the earth was made of 5 elements, right? Earth, what was it? Earth, water, what were the elements? Hold on, I gotta look this up because it's not the Avatar elements. Aristotle's elements. Yeah, 4 earthly elements: earth, air, water, fire. Oh yeah, it actually is straight up. And then also a 5th one called aether. So, like, he thought that the entirety of all creation was built up of earth, air, water, fire, and ether. So does that mean we should just dunk on Aristotle and just be like, fuck you, Aristotle? Probably not. Probably not. He's still a significant figure who said a lot of interesting things. An important philosopher and an important commentator. Still relevant today, if you ask me. Like, Aristotle's worth talking about in regards to the structure of the society. Because Aristotle had a really interesting commentary on what's called the problem of democracy. The problem of democracy being, if you're a wealthy, rich landholder, and everybody gets the vote, what's to stop everybody from just voting your land away? And spreading the resources out, thereby making you equal to these poors, right? Aristotle's still a rich landowner, right? And the solution Aristotle came up with was, well, we should create a robust welfare state. Because if everybody have their food and shelter and their basic necessities taken care of and are free to pursue the things they want to pursue, they won't care that you're rich. That was his argument. So it's like, yeah, and I think that that's actually generally true. Like, I don't care that someone's rich. I care that people are poor. That's the thing. Like, I don't care if you want your Bugattis. I don't care if you want to, like, get in your big house and all that kind of stuff. I don't care if you have that and that's what you want to do. I care about people sleeping on the street. So if you eliminate that problem and then be rich, then great. Off you go. That's fine. So James Madison was confronted with that problem too, the problem of democracy. Right? And he rejected Aristotle's solution, instead creating a constitution that kept power within the quote-unquote wealth of the nation. So it's impossible for anyone other than the rich to enter the halls of power at all. And the theory was the rich will not vote their wealth away. And that's basically held true. Right? So Aristotle's still an important person to have a conversation about in the conversation. I said the word conversation 3 times, I think. But also believed the earth was made of earth, air, water, fire. So like straight up Avatar shit. Never mind the stretched supply lines. Yeah, Germany took down Norway. Norway is colder than Russia. Bra moment. That's a good point, Command Genius. Real good point. So yeah, where was the winter then? Where was the winter then? I guess it was a mild winter. That's what it was. It was a mild winter. Mild winter. Oh man, Thomas, you really want to get into like the intricacies of the economic conversation. I'm basically half asleep. I'm literally gonna go eat food after this. Like I value you, bud. Keep coming into the chat because I do value these sorts of this sort of conversation. But right now, dude, like I'm just lucky that I'm even here. Oddity. Yeah, but the comfortable middle class types will probably turn to fascism instead of communism. Yeah, I mean it's completely possible. Like that's just it, Oddity. Like it's completely possible. And that's something that I'm deeply, deeply worried about. It's the reason why I do this, right? It's the reason why I do this, because I do worry that our society is going to take that hard pivot and take the hard turn to towards fascism. I want to believe that people will instead let like we'll look to figures like Tommy Douglas, we'll look to figures like their own grandparents who have talked about the benefits of egalitarian systems, of unifying projects, right? The healthcare system is a great example of this. I really want to believe that people will allow their empathy and compassion to reign, but I also think that when people get scared, things get fucky really fast. Like, things get fucky really fast when people get scared. And I think that what is likely to happen is that the crisis will come on us so dramatically. Like, it's going to be very dramatic what happens. It's going to happen very quickly. It's not going to be a slow roll. And a lot of really bad decisions are going to happen really quickly. And that's what I think is most likely to occur. Because we're heading into this recession or major downturn or slow growth or whatever we want to call it. But also the American dollar is about to devalue. Oil is, like, we're already past peak oil. Or, like, it's debatable whether we're at or over the hump already, but we're heading there. And we haven't put in any clean, like, we haven't done anything to try and pivot away from it. And so we're heading for a very significant crash. And in the meantime, the only thing we're actually building is war. And so we're just heading for like a series of very major crashes that are going to happen very quickly and very dramatically. And the power structure knows it, right? They know that these things are coming and they know that it's going to happen this way. They're very aware of it. And so what I think is going to happen in our society is it's less that people are going to go, the solution is fascism, and more that they're just going to go along with really bad choices. That, like, everyone's going to be really scared. Like, we saw this during COVID. Like, people are willing to just do whatever. Like, they're willing to just go along with shit. And when you got a bunch of scared monkeys, right? All we really need to be influenced is have one person stand up and confidently declare something. You could take a look at like Jordan Peterson for that, right? All you got to do is stand up and say something with gusto, right? Like you really mean it. You're an authentic person that I'd have a beer with. And we'll all be like, yeah, let's go to Iraq, I guess. Like, that's how I think it's going to happen. And it's only going to be afterwards, like after the stupid decisions are made and after the series of ridiculous shit has happened and after there are purges and after there is all this ridiculous nonsense. It's only going to be after that anybody is going to take a look back on it and be like, oh, fuck. Like that's more or less how I think it's going to go down. Like, the purge of the internet is going to be almost immediate. Like, I don't think this channel survives. Very, very straightforwardly. Another good reason to say to you, please donate $1 to my Patreon. It gets you in the Discord. That way you know what happens to me once this channel gets scrubbed. Because that for sure is coming. Like, I don't know how we go through a fascist period with, like, communists remaining on social media platforms that are essentially owned by the fascists. Like, it's just not going to happen. Last note on the mistake of Stalin. Thomas, my man. This is from Isaac. Many cities in the U.S. are overwhelmed with homelessness and people lining up at food banks. Yeah, absolutely, dude. Like, absolutely. That guy, good to see you, bud. Marcus says you could disparage the middle class that are largely skilled tradesmen, but I believe us to be too comfortable and not suffering enough to join a revolution. No. I'm not trying to disparage the middle class, Marcus. I'm trying to say that the middle class didn't get created by capitalism. It got created because of unionism and the hard work of the labor movement. And the skilled tradesmen, right, are very valuable. And what's going to happen is, as the crisis happens, these skilled tradesmen are going to have to make a choice, right? They're going to have to make a choice about what kind of society they want to live in, right? Do they want to live in a society where there's loads of homeless people around all the time, where they get to walk around beating the shit out of people, where drug use is rampant, where there's, like, the disparity between the rich and the poor is extremely dramatic? Or do they want to live in a society where there is no homelessness, where everybody has their needs taken care of, even though it offends their people will just be lazy sentimentality, right? They are going to have to make that choice. And it is actually possible that they make the choice to start fucking crucifying people, right? We did that before. We've done that before as Westerners. Like, we've lived in a society where the solutions that we came for homelessness and poverty and despair was to just grab the rebels and start crucifying them. We've done that, right? And we can do it again. Or we can simply choose to say, no, homelessness should not be a thing. We should just not do that. That person does not have a home. Give them a home. Like, and it is actually that straightforward. The billionaire class and the wealthy are trying to convince you that it's complicated, and it isn't. That person does not have a home. Put them in a home. It's easy. It's done. It's over. Like, but we're just not interested in solving these problems, which is why we're heading towards these crashes. And again, it's not to disparage the skilled tradesmen. Absolutely not. Skilled tradesmen are the backbone of the society. They're building everything. They're maintaining everything. They're doing a lot of work. More work than they should, if you ask me. Getting paid not enough, if you ask me. But the reality is that one day you're going to step outside your house and there's going to be 100 homeless people just laying around. And the only solution that you're going to see come out of your society is to throw cops at them. But that's not going to solve the problem. It'll persist. Watson says the spearhead of any fascist movement usually is composed of destroyed and demoralized elements of the low end of the petty bourgeoisie and elements of the lumpen proletariat. Yeah. Like, that would be your Freedom Convoy guys, right? That's a good example. And that's a narrative I can believe, Watson. So I respect why you're skeptical of these guys, right? That if any group is going to get funneled into some kind of truly fascist movement during a fascist moment, it will be guys like this. Like, you're not wrong about that. Like, that's a fair assessment, I think. Yeah, Watson, I'm a skilled tradesman. I have no use for this system at all. Yeah, I'm more or less of the opinion that this system holds the skilled tradesmen back. It doesn't actually let them work their trade effectively. Yeah, Mocked talking about collectivization. Liga Disease says Ronnie is sticking around because Facebook purposefully allowed the original stream to go viral instead of taking it down. I think that is part of it. that definitely elevated it to like a legendary sort of a status. You know, like I think that the Ronnie McNutt thing is a true expression of absurdism. Like it's so fucking absurd what people are dealing with and what people are living through. Like I don't believe that this is simply just her you're that guy. You know what I mean? Like I think that dies very quickly. I think because it's boring. That's all. Like, oh, another guy killed himself. Like it is actually a boring narrative. Like it's a boring thing to talk about and to think about and to hold on for this long. Like people forget like their own birthdays. Like people forget like really important things. Why are they hanging on to this? Why does this matter to them? Why is this something that they're still spreading around? Like it's been months. Like we went through Christmas. Like I don't understand it. But my theory is that it's just like it's like a little anchor point. It's a little anchor point of total absurdism that captures something. Like if you were to tell the Ronnie McNutt story, you would tell a story of a war veteran that's abandoned by his society and becomes a complete and total victim of a techno oligarchy. Like it's quite a shocking story, frankly, that I think people want to keep alive. Really. Like I don't think it's like fuck you Ronnie, haha, Ronnie, you look like Ronnie, haha. Like I think people want this story to be alive. And that's why it keeps happening. And it's sort of weird that it's kind of landing in my lap. It's interesting. I think that's real interesting. Also, Stalin didn't decide private property no longer allowed. Yeah, we're back on the Stalin thing. That guy just got back from a volunteer information center for Feed Scarborough. Good for you, bud. Good for you, bud. Getting out there, doing some real work. That sounds real good, dude. Doing some real fucking work. God damn it. That's the thing that pisses me off so much about our society, dude, is that there is real work to be done. Like, there's real work to be done. And everybody's just doing dumb shit. Like, everybody's focused on dumb shit on behalf of a bunch of dumbasses. Like, we're all working for these morons, these detached, aloof psychos. And instead of focusing on, like, building community and building a society. It's just annoying. Winston Churchill starved millions of Indians in East Bengal. He used chemical gas on Kurds. For sure. Oh yeah, Winston Churchill was a real piece of work, man. Western Marxists like Karl Korsch. I don't know who Karl Korsch is. And I like Richard Wolff. I think Richard Wolff is really an important figure because he has articulated Marxism in a way that is accessible. That I think that Marxism is a very daunting thing for lots of people. And Wolff is useful for getting people in the door so that they can understand what's being said to them in a very simple and clean sort of way. At 29, this is from Marcus again. At 29, most of my friends and families I consider middle class, finished trade school. We rely on capitalism for our businesses to offer plumbing and other trade services. Right, but Marcus, like, your entire business model is based on the idea that people have money to pay you, right? Like that's the entire basis of your system. Well, that's going to stop. Like, people are not going to have money. You're gonna walk up to them and be like, hey, I have this trade or this service that I can offer you. I need some money in exchange to pay my own bills and my own rent and all that kind of stuff. And they're gonna be like, sorry, dude, I don't have any money. All my money goes to rent and food. Right? And so you're going to live in a society where your services are not going to be used because nobody can pay for it. And you're going to see everything falling into decay around you, knowing that you have the skills in order to prevent it. But nobody has the money to actually enable you or activate you. Right? And if you're not seeing that around you right now, you will. Like, you will. Because that's happening elsewhere. Like, you probably live in, like, a nice little community or, like, a wealthy part of the society, right? Well, go to the poorer neighborhoods. Take a look at what's happening. Right? Take a look at their buildings. Why do you think they're falling apart? Because nobody can pay to have them fixed. Right? And all the money's just going to get extracted upwards. All the wealth is being extracted upwards. And you're going to be a guy with a hammer looking for a nail to hit. And all you'll need is $1 to do it, and no one's going to have it for you. That's where we're going. That's the system as it's unfolding. Right? So, and maybe once that begins happening, and you see that what I'm saying is actually true, you'll talk more seriously about these issues. Because it's one thing to live in an environment where you're hearing about it, and it's another to see it with your own eyes. And maybe now that you've heard me say this, you will start to see it in your own society, in your own community. Because it's the type of thing you can't unsee. Right? It's the type of thing you can't unsee. That you'll see a dilapidated building, you'll see something falling apart, and you'll recognize and realize, oh shit, these people have no money. My service cannot be used there. Why? Why don't we have a system whereby I could go and just fix that? Why don't we have a government institution, a crown corporation, some kind of national effort that I could literally walk into the building and be like, hey, this building's dilapidated, falling apart, I know how to fix it. And they'll be like, oh great, off you go, here's the pay, bibbity bobbity boo. Connect those dots. And basically what we're heading for is a situation where you're a dot and there's a dot there and there's going to be no connection. It's going to piss you off, dude. It's going to piss you off a lot. Like, you're 29 right now, so you're just sort of getting your feet planted. And I suspect you're in a good position too. Being 29 in the trades right now is a good place to be. But you're going to witness, you're going to see it. And more, the only people who are going to be able to afford your services are going to be people in palaces, people in gigantic mansions, this sort of stuff. And so they'll end up in good repair while the society you live in falls apart around you. Because the mass of the people will simply not have the money. That guy says, I'm excited they need lots of help. I think I can find at least a couple of days a week. What a blessing you are, that guy. Honestly, dude, that's putting your money where your mouth is, dude. I really value that. I want you to know that, man. Like, actually getting out there, doing the volunteer work, getting connected to your community. Dude, like, just bravo, dude. Just bravo. Well done. Well done. Well done. You are an inspiration to all of us, and I'm not saying that with any tongue in cheek. Like, thank you for doing that. That's the actual work. That's the real work. The capitalists are siphoning away our lives to ensure that we can never actually do that real work. Yeah, and Watson, your point is also noted. It should be noted that the middle class is a made up term to get people on side with the system. It seems to have worked here. Yeah, I do think that Marcus is commenting in good faith, and I don't think he's trying to shit on the idea. I think he's stating something that is real. Like, I think it's a real thing that he's experiencing and looking around. But it is worth saying, and Marcus, hopefully you're still here listening, bud. Like, there is only the working class and the ownership class, right? The proletariat and the bourgeoisie, if you like. But I prefer to say the ownership class and the owned, right? You either own property and own people by renting them, or you are owned. And there are various degrees of that, certainly, but those are the two classes. You are the working class. Like, you have more in common with me than you do with your owners. By a lot. Oh, yeah. Elon Musk lost $200 billion. He's still the second person. Yeah, exactly. It's just, like, ridiculous. Oh, fantastic. Cotton says, so, am I to understand that tradesmen won't have enough work to do if everyone was made financially capable of affording their service? Sorry, dude. I'm, like, blazing through it. I can't do that. Am I to understand that tradesmen won't have enough work to do if everyone was made financially capable of affording their services? What is it about homelessness that is necessary for tradesmen? Who is supposed to work but not be able to afford life? Do people with skills want to use those skills, or just be someone in a position to live passively off of an eventual trust fund? Do they want to work or not? And Anemone just laying it out, right? If you're under 30 and aren't pissed, you are simply blind. I mean, I think that what Marcus has brought into the chat is something I've commented a lot, is that I think that there is a general sense among sections of the populace that we can solve these problems through electoralism and that there will be a soft landing. That, okay, sure, we're going to go through a bit of a recession and a dark kind of period, but then we'll pick it all up and everything will be fine. Right? I think that there's sort of a general hope that that's the way it's going to go, and it's not going to go that way. And that hope is going to get shattered really, really fast. And what I hope happens, and what I suspect will happen, for people like Marcus, who I think came in here in good faith, I don't have any resentment towards him, and in fact, he sounds to me like he's a good working class man, is that once he starts to see the decay, and once he starts to see it with his own eyes, he'll think of this conversation. That this will ring in his ears as he sees it in his life. Isaac says, many cities are in decay and have been abandoned, and the cities can't repair the roads and maintain water and sewage systems. Yeah, Detroit is a good example of that. Detroit was outright abandoned. And in my view, Detroit is the model, right? Moving forward, Detroit is the model. That as we move forward, the capitalists will turn us all into Detroit. And we'll just get completely abandoned. Everything will fall apart and into disrepair. The extraction and any infrastructure that remains in will become totalitarian, like my grocery store with its cameras, right? Like but then eventually Amazon or Walmart. I think it'll be Walmart first. I think it will be Walmart first, right? That Walmart will start closing its doors because Walmart will be like, yeah, we can't compete on the market anymore. They'll say some bullshit like this, but what they're really saying is nobody has any more money anymore, and anytime we funnel resources into these areas, masses of people come and just take them and don't pay. So we're just going to shutter our doors and leave, right? And I do think it'll be Walmart first, and then Amazon, right? Because Amazon's model is different. That Amazon comes and hands it to you, right? So you pay, and then I come and hand it to you. Whereas Walmart's model is come in here and then walk out after you pay, and people will just not pay. And so they'll just be like, oh, it's no longer profitable to be here, so we'll just close. And then Amazon, with its model of withholding and unless it hands it to you, right? We all loved the Amazon system because, oh, it's so convenient. They bring it to your door. But in the end, it's just another way for them to withhold the good until you paid, right? Here you go. And so Amazon will stick around a little bit longer until some other more draconian and horrible model shows up. Yeah, East Cleveland is worse than Detroit. It's a god-awful town in Ohio. No, New Orleans. Yeah, Katrina, better model of capitalist abandonment. Yeah, that pretty stark, too. Pretty stark. Marcus, I'm open to it. That's why I'm here and engaging you. In rural Indiana, I haven't seen any of the type of dystopian stories you paint, but maybe I'm too removed from the canary in the coal mine. I mean, if you're living in rural Indiana, dude, like I'm from rural Manitoba, right? That's where I'm from. And I think it is easy to get insulated, right? Especially if you're in like a pretty closed society. And I don't mean closed like you kind of know everybody around you, right? I think a really great book for you. I'm gonna pitch a book at you, okay, Bud Marcus, and just something to maybe help you along. Chris, I forget the name of the book. Hedges. Joe Sacco. Days of Destruction, Days of Revolt. This is a graphic novel written by Chris Hedges. He's a Pulitzer Prize winning writer. Days of Destruction, Days of Revolt. There's the cover if you'd like to see it. It's a graphic novel drawn by Joe Sacco, and it goes through what Chris Hedges calls the sacrifice zones the sacrifice zones in America. And it shows you through illustration and drawing, but also through description and stories, the areas of America that have already been abandoned. And it tells you the stories of the people in America who have already experienced what I am describing to you. And so if you want a real smack in the face, hard to turn away from, gaze into exactly what I'm talking about in a very serious manner, you want to find Days of Destruction, Days of Revolt. Chris Hedges, Joe Sacco. That what occurs in this book is what's going to occur to the rest of the society, yours included. That if you are spared it, it is because your society has already kind of created a cohesive unit unto itself. And that it might be possible that you guys will look at what's going on in the wider world and say, keep that away from us. Completely possible. Completely possible. But if that's the life that you're living, then you better pray to God that it stays that way, and you better thank your Creator that He has blessed you with such a life. Watson says Cleveland basically mirrors Detroit. In 1960, Detroit had 2 million inhabitants. It has less than 1 million now. Cleveland had, in 1960, had over 1 million people. It now had 300,000. Yeah, dude. Jeez Louise, eh? East Cleveland is a separate city. Not even Cleveland wants it. The point being is that the industrial abandonment has left things where they are, yeah. I think that what we have here in Marcus is the difference with the mindset of the proletariat and the peasantry, in modern terms, urban and rural. Yeah, I mean, I understand that. I do think, like, coming from a small community myself, it's easy to... I do think it's easy for rural communities to brace and recover from these sorts of catastrophes. And that's because I think that there is in rural communities a larger sense of, first of all, a connection to the production, right? Like farmers make food, real straightforward shit. And also just the lifestyle and the things that are going on make it so that you know your neighbors more. I think this is a real thing. My phone's about to die, TikTok, so I'm going to say goodbye to you. Like it, share it, do all the things. Love you all. Bless your hearts. Good luck out there. I'm going to keep talking to the YouTubes for a bit. Rural people are more self-sufficient. I think that, like, being a tradesperson in a rural environment is more stable for sure than a urban environment. I think that that's definitely true. There's far less like landlordism. There's far less large corporate entities that have claimed a lot of territory. I think all of that is very true. Have you seen Indiana roads? Maybe you don't feel the potholes from that giant monster truck. Jay, how you doing, bud? I hope you're here to be beautiful, man. I think capitalism is flawed, but I think communism is just too far. However, I'm open-minded. Yeah, the thing to do is just keep listening, bud. That's all. Like, really ask yourself, Jay, and I'm saying this, and I'm not trying to insult you, okay? Like, really. This is a genuine question, and I hope you really take it seriously. Really ask yourself, what do you actually know about communism? Like, really, really, and be serious. Don't just immediately switch to the slogan, right? Don't immediately just let the CIA, like, psyop pop your brain. Communism killed 100 million people. Like, don't let that happen. Really ask yourself, what do you actually know about communism? And I think that if you are honest with yourself, and I think that if you really, really looked at it, you'd say, I don't know anything about communism. And so I'm trying to stress on people, and you in particular, if you are open-minded, the first thing to do is admit you don't know a goddamn thing about the subject. And my suggestion would be to just literally put the Communist Manifesto on. Go to YouTube, type in the Communist Manifesto, and listen to it. You could do that right now. Literally right now. And if you do that, you're already one step ahead of everybody else. You're already one step ahead of everybody else. Or you can just keep listening to the CIA. Your choice. Up to you. Welcome to Indiana. Shows photo of a cornfield that stretches for miles and miles. That's all of Indiana. Hope you had a good time. That one hits me in my Manitoba heart, Mocked. That's how Manitoba is. Manitoba is so flat that you can see the curvature of the earth. That's good. That's a good thing to admit, Jay. That's a good thing to admit. That article in the WSWS tomorrow. You know what, Watson? You're right. Let's do that tomorrow, because I actually do want to. I do want to talk about this. I know I kind of glazed away from it, but I'm gonna put it right in the article section, right here, right now, and we'll bring it back tomorrow. So if you pop in and I'm not doing it, you flick me and we'll do it, because that sounds like it's important, and I don't know why I don't know anything about it. Yeah, the manifesto isn't even long. Yeah. Oh, okay, Jay. What's the basics of communism? You should be able to explain this in a sentence. This is going to be fun. I'm going to stick around just to hear this. And I'm not trying to embarrass you, Jay. I'm not going to embarrass you at the end of this, okay? If anything, this could be very clarifying, very crystallizing. Because, in my opinion, there's what the entirety of communism is about can be explained in a sentence. Page 12 of my copy of the manifesto pretty much describes what is happening right now. Yeah, dude. It's not even that long. It's true. It's true. Dude, this is exactly right. We're going overtime here because I want to talk to Jay a little bit. Jay seems like an open person, and I want to see if I can push the needle. If I can push the needle on you, Jay, I'll do it. I'll do it. Here we go. A political theory derived from Karl Marx, advocating class war and leading to a society in which all property is publicly owned and each person works and is paid according to their abilities and need. That's pretty close, actually. That's pretty close, I would say. But, yeah, you wikied it. Yeah, but misses the mark. Misses the mark. Right? It's, and I mean, you wikied it, so it purposefully misses the mark, because Wikipedia is going to miss the mark. And it's better explanation that anti-communist, and Jay says just straight up, yeah, I did. You copped to it, so I love it. That's so funny, Jay. Just literally, we immediately were like, you wikied it. And he's like, yeah, fuck. Okay. Look, it's this simple, Jay. Right? It's this simple. There are owners and there are owned. And there shouldn't be. That's all it is. That's literally all it is. That there are people who own the means of production, right? There are people who own businesses. There are people who own institutions that they shouldn't own. And there are people who own nothing, who have their food and shelter withheld from them, who have to work for these people or starve. That's the long and short of it. No more, no less. Like, that's the golden nugget. That if you want to talk about communism and you want to get into it seriously, it begins with the idea of asking the simple question: why do some people own literal institutions while other people own nothing and are forced to work for them? And that's fundamentally the truth. It's fundamentally the truth. I do have a Discord. To get into the Discord, you've got to donate at least $1 to my Patreon. If you would like to donate more, I would value and appreciate that. Patreon can be found in the description. What do I need to know is that isn't communism included dictatorship? So because there's a theory in communism called the dictatorship of the proletariat, which should be translated to dictatorship of the workers. The idea is that communism creates an apparatus that excludes the capitalist class from it. That the goal of communism is to eliminate capitalists, and so we create what's called a dictatorship of the proletariat, dictatorship of the workers, that excludes the capitalists from it. And when the capitalists attempt to get involved in the political apparatus, that's understood to be corruption. And no, that's fine, Jay. I understand. We just met. Yeah, and I'm using the Discord more for organization and more for people who are serious about it, right? Like, so I don't want just anybody to blow in, right? And that's fine. And the structure of, like, the Soviet system, like, Soviet literally means council, right? Because it's a series of councils that made agreements democratically with one another, and it all went up to the top of the chain, and it's all democratically done. Like, Stalin was elected, right? Like, the idea that it's a... Yeah, exactly. It's not a literal dictatorship. It describes how class is calling the shots. Right now we live under a dictatorship of the ruling class, the bourgeoisie. That's worth pointing out, right? Right now we are in a dictatorship of capitalism. We're in a dictatorship of capital. And that's really, really evident with the party system, right? Like, the conservatives, liberals, NDP, and to a large extent the Greens, or the Democrats and the Republicans, they're all capitalists. Right? So where's the working class interest at all? It's a dictatorship of capital. And so communism wants to flip it and say we should have a dictatorship of the workers, a dictatorship of the proletariat. And the structures that the Soviets and the communists and the Chinese and the Vietnamese and all this have are not dictatorships. They're democratically elected. They're just not Westminster parliamentary democracies, right? They're not Congress, Senate, presidency. You know, they actually they're rooted in the workers' councils most of the time. The NPC is a little different, but the way the Soviet system worked was that it's I said NPC. The National People's Congress in China is a bit different, but the Soviet system was essentially like you had workers' councils, what we would understand as like trade unions or guilds almost. And they would come up with things democratically amongst themselves, and you had groups of them, and then that went up to another level, and I forget what the names of all these things are. And then that group would elect another body, and there would be like a funneling up, because everybody understands that at the very top, you need an agile decision-making apparatus. I shouldn't say that everybody thinks this way. The anarchists don't. The anarchists don't think that way. The anarchists think that things should stay horizontal, right? And I have, we can discuss the strengths and merit of both those ideas. I'm really not trying to argue against everything you say, but can I ask, what is wrong with capitalism? I mean, 60% of people in your society live paycheck to paycheck. The fundamental core. You know what, dude? I could rattle off a bunch of reasons and all that kind of stuff, but I think it really does come down to this. That because of the dynamic between the capitalists and the workers, the owners and the owned, it means that you live in a society that is perpetually at war with itself. Right? That Marx is not saying that we should start a class war. Marx is saying that we are in a class war. He is acknowledging the existence of the class war. Because structurally, right? It's not a moral argument. Structurally, there are owners and there are owned. And the interests of the owners run against the interests of the owned. And the interests of the owned run against the interests of the owners. Simple example. I would like a wage increase. That means less money for me. I would like more profits. That means less money for me. Like and it is that simple. And so it means that you're living in a society that is structurally and perpetually and forever always at war with one another, in which the structure of it, play one game of Monopoly. No, Jay, the only thing causing any division in the American people is the two-party system. The American system of democracy is theater. Like, gonna let that sink in, and I'll say it again, because I just don't think when I say this people really understand it. The American system of electoral politics is exclusively and only theater. That the people who are involving themselves in it are doing so for two reasons. First, careerism, which is to say they want to do well by the billionaire class and get rewarded for it. Or simple vanity projects. I would like to be the president. I'll be a big tough guy once everybody sees that I'm the president. And once you recognize that the American system is theater exclusively, where the outcome always benefits the ruling class, which is the oligarchy, which Marcus points out we live under an oligarchy, you see very quickly how the reason why so much energy is constantly funneled into the electoral system is because the ruling class understands that it's a dead end. They know that it's a dead end. That they want to take political movements and funnel them into the halls of power where they will die. Because the goal of the institution is not to respond to the needs of the people. It is to maintain the power of the oligarchy. Exclusively. And if it stopped working that way, if suddenly a big organization came in and dethroned the Republicans, let's say, or the Democrats, let's say, and they started to enter the halls of power and actually make headway, the oligarchs would do away with it and simply rule nakedly. Marcus, I guess you could define American capitalism as an oligarchy. I'm imagining a dystopian future where tradesmen are just the skilled slaves of the lazy rich because the working class starved already. I mean, yeah, that's sort of the goal. It doesn't need to go down that way, but that's more or less the goal. Here are the external conditions which a good society provides and maintains for the good governance to a good people. A tradesman relies on supply lines empowered by lower jobs that works more directly with raw materials to produce the hammer. There are no islands in the labor force. Yeah, that's true. It just seems so far off. My town has poor people, sure, but not homeless people waiting in lines for food. Their church would help them before anyone would lose their home. Like, you hope so. You hope so. And again, Mark, like, it is completely possible that you just live in a small enough community where there is a bit of an infrastructure already in place, right? Like, you get into like big cities. Detroit is a great example. Cleveland, a great example. Like, these places were gutted, utterly gutted, and just dismantled and destroyed. Yeah, my church would help them. Sounds like medieval nobles, yeah. Elements of a decent livelihood. The end Aristotle called happiness. You know what, guys? I'm getting foggy, and I'm over time. I hope you guys are all having a beautiful one. Honestly, we had some really nice conversations today. Some new people. I hope you're all really doing well out there. Right? We're gonna go through some dramatic times, and I hope we make it through. Thanks, Oddity. Always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.